Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Put the children to bed. It's time for Dan and Aldo to bare their souls.
I love the Chicago Bears more than I do masturbating, and that is a lot.
Then, with 3 seconds left, Bob Avellini throws a 30-something yard touchdown pass to Greg Latta, and the Bears win, and I literally shit my pants. I swear to God, I literally did.
Eric Kramer, for me, I love the guy. He's a tragic figure. I mean, he embodies all that is.
If they don't run the ball here, I'm going to vomit. I swear to God.
Look, I don't mean any disrespect. He just didn't play that well. Not for a guy of his caliber.
You know, they won, but I'm going to be miserable all week because they stunk.
I don't really have any recollection of that at all, but I guess perhaps I blacked it all out.
So, Dan, tape is the ultimate tool for scouts and for coaches to evaluate players, to detect plays and so forth. And they spend hours looking at tape, right? Why do they so often get shit wrong?
Ladies and gentlemen, Dan and Aldo.
We have got Jim McMahon coming in the house, and Dan Aguirre is right now coming in his hands. Oh my gosh. Dan,
I remember one of the lines that Cheech Marin said. I think it was in Nice Dreams, but it could have been any of them. But he said, "I'm so nervous right now, you couldn't get a pin at my ass with a jackhammer." That's the way I feel. And I hope that don't sound too much like shit, because I'm still like dealing with this like virus, whatever the fuck I have, this flu thing, you know. For like a week, I felt like shit. Like I feel so much better now than I sound. You know, even though I still don't feel well, but I hope Jim doesn't hear my voice and say, like, my God,
yeah, well,
this guy's a radio guy. Listen to how shitty his voice is.
You sound great, and I'm so excited and happy for you, Dan. You've been talking about this for quite some time, and I kind of lollygag around. Mike North Mike North had Jim on his show, the Mike North Advantage, here on the Viral Network a year or two ago, and I said,
I got to ask a question.
That's right. We recorded you asking a question. It was a great question. And then, I just sort of, it left my mind, and I have a tendency to just kind of focus on stuff now. And then finally, it was actually Mike North who reminded me, hey, do you want to talk to, do you and Dan want to talk to Jim McMahon? And I go, fuck yeah. He goes, and so he gave me the phone number, and then I waited like 2 weeks because I was a little nervous about approaching him and stuff. And finally I did, and he responded right away. So he will be joining us shortly. We decided to start the show a little early because he could pop in at any time. And I just wanted to say hello to everybody. Thank you for those of you who are joining us live. This should be a really fun experience. I'll try to get some of your questions in. Dan is going to do 95% of the interview with Jim, because as you folks know, Dan's recollection of stuff is much better than me. Even though he didn't live through a lot of the stuff that I lived through, he knows it so much better than I do. So this is going to be an incredible interview with Dan Aguirre and Jim McMahon, and then I'll be collecting questions, and we'll get to those towards the end of the interview. Dan, again, one of the things that when he pops in, I want to make sure that it's okay for us to swear, because
yeah, I'll be PG if I need to be, for real.
Yeah, and I know you will. I mean, you're a professional, but I'm hoping that he doesn't mind us swearing, because I want to find out, all sorts of devious things that he might have done in his career. Like, hey, did you ever fuck this lady or that lady? No, I won't go there.
I don't want to go there.
I won't go there. I won't go there. But maybe, did your center ever fart before an important snap or something like that?
I remember in his book, he this is a paraphrase, but because I haven't read it in 20 years or something, but I haven't.
Mm-hmm.
But he said that like he was stunned. And that was at the height of his popularity, pop culture wise. But he was stunned that people would just want to pay him just to eat meals with him, and dinner, just talk to him. And it was always like, really? Like they want to give me money, like just to eat with me, So I hope, even though it's all these years later, I hope he's still not like, what? Why do these people want to keep talking to me?
Yeah, I see. I don't remember. There was a part either in his book or when I worked over at CBS, Jeannie Morris was doing a half-hour special on him. I don't recall if he said this during the show or it was in his book, that he got a call once. And they said, hey, we'll pay you $10,000 to come out tonight for autograph signing and so forth. And he said, no, I'm not interested. He hung up the phone. They called back a couple minutes later. They offered them $15,000. He says, it sounds great, but no, I want to just lay low. Hangs up. And then another few minutes later, they said, called back and said $20,000. And McMahon was like, okay, I'll do it. And he was like dumbfounded and saying, why would these stupid fans want to line up to get my autograph? And maybe that was in the book. Do you recall that in the book?
It's been so long. I'm not 100% certain.
Yeah, maybe it was in the documentary. Anyway, he was at times, one of the things I'd love to hear him talk about, was he a reluctant superstar or did he really kind of bask in the glow of being probably the number one quarterback, definitely not statistically, but in the league? I mean, this guy's, anytime he was on, people all across the football world were interested in what he was doing, what he was saying.
John Madden loved him.
Oh my gosh. He was bigger than life. And those of you who are going to experience this interview and you weren't around during that time, this was really a special time in Chicago sports. I mean, Michael Jordan came around. That's the only thing I can compare it to. Michael Jordan and the Bulls were like the Beatles. Well, Jim McMahon and the '85 Bears were like the Beatles. It was such an incredible team of characters, and the way they played was phenomenal. I still, a lot of people on social media will criticize us Bears fans who like to recall those days. But if you were alive for those days, fucking A, man. We're going to talk about that to our dying day, because that was a really special time in all of sports, man. Have you seen every game from the '85 season? Because I know you got the collection.
Yeah, I've got them all. Like, again, if you'd have talked to me in '85, I would have probably been already telling you that I'm a Bears fan.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, just because of the ads, I become a Bears fan because of Jim McMahon. And that's absolutely true. And, but I don't remember like watching the games and anticipating the games and really caring about the games beyond saying, oh, I'm a Bears fan, until the '87 season.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I was really like, emotionally invested and was old enough to know what's going on, at least to a certain point.
Yeah. And when you're that age, that stuff doesn't forget. You don't ever forget it. Like the '69 Cubs was when I first started to kind of really, really pay attention to sports. The '69 Bears, the '69 Cubs, I bring them up because they were in first place on September 1st, up by 10 games. I had my
God. And you blew a 10-game lead in September?
Yes.
God.
To the amazing Mets. And that, and I can still recall the lineup, the infield, Santo, Kessinger, Beckert, Banks, Hundley at catching, the 4-pitcher rotation, the outfield. I can still recall that, but it's just made such an indelible expression. And I remember towards the end of September when they had blown the lead and it was obvious they weren't going to go to the postseason, I'm wearing my Cub Power t-shirt walking down North Avenue. and people were just laughing at me. And so I went home and I took the t-shirt off and I threw it in the garbage can. That was it, man. It was and
you were in Chicago already. You're not in New York, right?
Yeah, I was in Chicago, and then
people are laughing at you. I figured they would be like, "Let me give you a hug, young brother."
Yeah, it's a tough neighborhood, man.
We know.
Yeah, and then that same season, the Bears went 1-13, and the Blackhawks went to the Stanley Cup playoffs and blew it in Game 7. It was a miserable time to be a Chicago sports fan, which is why I'm an ornery son of a bitch.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the Bears always find a way just to fuck things up that nobody else would.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that that's not what happens with Justin Fields, but I still feel that way about Jay Cutler. I feel that way about the 85 Bears not winning another championship and not even making a postseason appearance with Gale Sayers and Dick Butkus.
Mm-hmm.
Only the Bears could fuck this up.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how they fuck it. How do you go from drafting both of these guys in 65 and in 69 you win one game? And then, but by a pubic hair, you miss drafting Terry Bradshaw the next year.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like only the Bears, man.
A lot of people in the chat room talking about some of the stuff they want to hear Jim talk about. I'm starring all of these and saving all these comments, and when I butt into the interview, I'll fire off as many of these as possible. One of the things that people are asking about is they'd love to know what Jim's thoughts are on a present quarterback, Justin Fields. And I don't know if hasn't he said that he doesn't watch much football nowadays?
I can't speak for Jim, but I know from listening to him my entire life, he does not like to watch football when he's not playing.
Mm-hmm.
He said that he hated watching game film because it was boring. He hated practicing because it was boring. He loved to play because that was fucking great. And after his career, I don't think he watches any football. He even said when he retired, he felt like he could still play, but he was bored. He's like, I'm retiring because I'm bored.
Wow.
Because I don't want to be the backup anymore.
Wow. One of the questions that came in on social media was, I think it was from King Pookie Nation King Pookie. He said, I want to know why he said that the Packers were the best organization he ever played for. Does he still feel that way? It's not a touchy subject, but maybe we'll squeeze that question in.
Well, I mean, again, not to speak for Jim, but if you read his book, I mean, he predicted before it even happened, by the way, that the management would fuck this up.
That's right. I remember.
The management would fuck up this team. They would get in the way of the players winning another championship. He worried about that. So having said that, I can't defend Jim's statement. I mean, he can tell King Pookie his thoughts by himself, but I think he's going to say that, the Packers have been managed properly over the last 30 years as witnessed by them kicking our asses repeatedly versus the Bears who just kind of get in the way all the time. By the way, did you see Brett Favre has another horrendous accusation against him?
Yeah, I saw that. You sent me via text a link to the story. I didn't get a chance to read it all, but what's the story with Brett?
Something about embezzling money from a charity or.
Oh no,
he's a piece of shit, man. He really is.
Controversy follows that guy around everywhere. Hey PJ, how are you? And everybody else in the chat room. One of the other things that we should talk about with him. Well, we're not going to talk about the beer stuff when he got out of the limo, correct?
Yeah, we don't want to. Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted. I hope that Jim will be cool with not going through the greatest hits. I don't want to ask him about Doug Flutie. I don't want to ask him about the beer in '82 or, the same old questions about the 85 Bears. I want to dive in deeper. I don't want to ask just the same generic shit that he's been answering since '85.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm really looking forward to this is, and that's not a knock on any of the other interviewers from the past, but Dan's got a kind of a very unique perspective on how he wants to handle this interview. And
if I could give you an analogy, let's say whatever your favorite band is, whomever it is, okay. Who's your favorite band of all time?
I would probably say Zeppelin.
Okay. Pretend hypothetically right now Led Zeppelin is performing across the country and you've got tickets. There's a difference going to see them at a festival where they're going to play their greatest hits versus you're going to get a show when they're headlining their show. You're going to get deep cuts and stuff. You know, tracks they normally wouldn't play for the mass, but they know you're their fan base. They're going to play stuff that maybe is on the second side of the record. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
That's kind of where I want to go with Jim here. Not ask him the same shit that Adam Schefter would ask him. I want to ask him the stuff that a Bears fan might want to know more specifically, not just the general pop culture shit, you know? If that makes any sense.
Absolutely. By the way, Jerome Munoz says that he heard the Bears are trading Robert Quinn to the Kansas City Chiefs for a third rounder. That's probably a rumor because I haven't seen any official reports or anything from any of the so-called established gossip reporters. But trading him to KC for a third, man, that just doesn't seem like enough to me, man.
That's what I was thinking. I thought after the season he had, I mean, he's worth a second.
At least, man. I mean,
and why trade him to Kansas City? Man, just put an asshole tax on them. Like, you're trying to win another Super Bowl. Well, give us a second-round pick. You just got 25 picks for Tyreek Hill. Fleecing the Miami Dolphins, man. So give us some more love here if you want our number 94.
Yeah. Somebody in the chat room is going by the name of Butkus, says he won almost 75% of the games he started for the Chicago Bears, which is 61 games started. That is amazing. It really is. I mean,
yeah, man.
And what
46-15 in the regular season.
Yeah.
And then 49-18 or 49-17 in the regular, or if you combine the postseason with the regular.
Gotcha. And the thing is the only guy that could stop Jim McMahon was Mike Ditka, and Mike Ditka, in essence, sort of did. You know, I mean, he had so many fucking restraints on that guy. McMahon, he should have been given the keys to the offense. You know, call the plays. You'll be one of the last guys in NFL history to call your own plays. Go out there and lead this offense. We'll talk about your play selection after you scored a touchdown or after we punt it, whatever it is. But I would have loved to have seen him run the offense he wanted, you know. I remember when he was on the Mike North advantage, he said, you know, Mike Ditka was a great coach, but he was a terrible play caller. I would have loved to have played football with Mike and have him as my tight end. And, you know, and I think that I couldn't agree more with him. Mike Ditka, unfortunately, was very, very conservative when it came to play calling. And it would have been so much fun with Willie Gault and Dennis McKinnon and Walter Payton, who was a terrific pass catcher. That fucking offense could have been posting 30, 40
as
points.
Accurate as everything is you're saying. At least we could run the ball when Mike was there.
Yeah, absolutely.
We could always run the ball, and we haven't had a team that could run the ball like effectively since Thomas Jones. Yep. Except for the 1 year Jordan Howard was running over people. Well, I guess 2 years that Jordan Howard was really solid. But, you know, like with Nagy, as I've said over and over, it was just like, as good as David Montgomery is, like, he, you know, couldn't get into a rhythm at all because of Baldy. I don't want to say bald fuck in case Jim's here, and I don't want to piss him off.
We're expecting him soon. He can take as long as he wants, as long as he doesn't take till 10:25. 5 minutes left. Dan's got to go to work.
Yeah, please don't do that.
We've got.
I'll tell you something else I'd like to talk to him about it. Okay. Unless I interrupted you.
No. I was just going to say quickly in the chat, somebody said that McMahon was as tough as a 2-day-old steak, and that is true, man. He was a tough son of a bitch.
One of the things I remember from the book, and I'm sure he'd be more than willing to dive in on this, is he was hurt before Charles Martin. And the Bears kept telling him that there was nothing wrong with his shoulder, and he thought, man, something's not right. And he was like almost out of like spite because Dan Hampton kept fucking with him in front. And I love Dan Hampton on WGN, as you know, and I loved him as a player. I mean, come on. But behind the scenes, Jim said that like Hampton was constantly like digging at him and like in front of the whole team saying that like he wasn't, you know, like, are you really that hurt? And like challenging his manhood. So it's like he's playing like to shut Hampton up when in hindsight, he probably shouldn't have been. Yeah. And then when the Charles Martin thing happens, of course, he has to miss almost an entire season, a full calendar year is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
because of the rotator cuff as a result of that injury.
Mm-hmm.
And even so, like, he had to go get a surgery outside of the Bears organization because he didn't feel like they would fucking do this right, the surgery right.
Mm-hmm. Man, those Bears-Packers games with Forrest Gregg, the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, and Mike Ditka, the head coach. I mean, those two guys hated each other. I would have loved to have been, a fly on the wall in both of those locker rooms to hear what Greg was saying about the Bears and Ditka, and to hear what Ditka was saying about Greg and the Packers. I mean, that was pure hatred.
Well, Ditka said the story over and over that at least once, maybe twice, when they came up to Lambeau, that they had horse shit in the locker room. So when the Bears came in, literally the whole locker room smelled like shit.
Oh, God, that's just fucked.
And had the heat on.
Oh, that's right. I do remember that.
So just horrific things, man, that they would do. Like, they just absolutely hated each other. And that's why it was so in 87 when Butler kicks the field goal from 52 yards to beat Green Bay, which was McMahon's 25th consecutive win in the regular season, mind you, 28th overall. Butler flipped off the Packers bench. It's great. Fucking love it.
I remember.
Could you imagine if Santos would flip off that little boy, the head coach in Green Bay? I would love it.
I wonder what McMahon's relationship is with the Packers and their fans now. I mean, he really enjoyed his time there, but when he went to
and he still wore our jersey when they went to the White House.
That's what I was just gonna say. So Chicago is definitely number one in his heart, but I know that he wishes certain things were different with the Bears organization. Nomad says that back then they shot those guys up with so much dope and they got hurt. Yeah, if you've read any of the books from that era from football players, North of the Dallas 40 and some of those other books, man, they were handing out, painkiller pills like they were candy, like candy corn on Halloween. Incredible. Cliff Victoria says McMahon was the best quarterback the Bears had since Luckman. Inarguably, that is a fact, Cliff. And there's nobody here who saw Sid Luckman, so we can only go by his stats and stuff. But given the way football was played back then, who knows if we had the opportunity to watch some really good film of Luckman and really good film of Jim McMahon, we might come to the conclusion that McMahon was the better quarterback because the styles of play back then, it was just so different. So. Who knows? Imagine
if Jim in his youth and, in the 26, 27-year-old body of Jim McMahon with today's quarterback rules.
Oh, my
Because, I mean, he could basically, as we saw by Charles Martin, again, you can, even though he was, suspended and fined for that a little bit, he got a small fine. But I'm just saying you could beat the shit out of the quarterback then, as in comparison today, any of those hits on McMahon now, you're in deep shit.
Yeah.
Although Fields took a beating and a lot of times didn't get penalties last season.
You mentioned that he didn't like to look at film. One of the things that I would love to hear him talk about is if by not watching film, how did he prepare? I mean, was this playground football for him? He just dropped back to pass and saw where their safety was and saw where he knew where his guys were going to be and so forth, and then fired the ball. How do you do that? Because we're all programmed to think that you have to watch film. You have to know what it is you're doing. This guy in that Vikings game, he comes in on one play, throws a touchdown pass to Willie Gault that changes the tempo of that game, and the Bears end up winning.
His second pass is a touchdown too. His second pass was a touchdown to McKinnon, and his fourth pass was a touchdown to McKinnon.
Unbelievable. He probably didn't watch any film at all that week. He was probably in the training room.
It's funny you say that. In the playoff loss to the Doug Williams game in January of 88, the 87 season, when they lost. And again, the Bears had a 14-0 lead. But the defense, of course, which is, we all pound our dicks about, and blew a 14-0 lead at home in the fucking frigid cold bear weather and blew that shit. But the reason I bring it up is in the pregame, they were talking because, to all the Bears, like, wow, McMahon's starting. Now it feels like you guys can really win. What is it about McMahon? And They had Jim Covert says on there that a lot of people don't think of him this way, but he's a general. Like he can read defenses better than anybody I've ever played with. Now keep in mind, who did Covert play football with in college? Dan Marino.
Okay, yes.
And he said McMahon read defenses better than anyone he'd ever played with.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't come out and like jab Marino when he said it.
Sure.
But he was just saying that a lot of people don't give him the credit he deserves for just his ability to be able to see what the defense is doing to our offense.
Mm-hmm.
That's straight out of a Hall of Famer's mouth.
Yeah. Laz says that he wonders why McMahon never had a desire to coach. It seems like he would have been a great coach. I don't know about that, Laz. I get the feeling that Jim, because he just marches to a different drummer, I don't know if he would have been a good coach. You know, a lot of guys who are great at what they do, it's difficult for them to become head coaches because the game becomes so easy for them, and they don't have the patience for players who struggle a bit. You know, Larry Bird is definitely an exception. Bird was a pretty good coach for the Indiana Pacers. Bill Russell was a great coach because he was a player coach, took over for Red Auerbach. I'm having difficulty thinking of other great players who have transitioned to coach or manage.
Phil Jackson.
Oh, there you go. Phil Jackson.
Doug Collins. Doug Collins was a player too.
There you go. Okay.
But Phil Jackson, definitely, right? He was a world champion Knick.
That's right.
And obviously, you know what he's done. What has he got? 9 rings? Does he have 10?
Jeez.
What does he have?
He had 6 with the Bulls and another
4. He had 3, and then he won a couple with Kobe later.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got 11 rings.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. By the way, what'd you think of the Lakers TV show from this past Sunday? And great. Thankfully, it's been picked up for another season.
Yeah, it was the slowest of the episodes thus far, but I liked how they really spent time conveying that Westhead was like a Shakespearean, advocate. And I'd like to see the real press conference if he really said that.
Mm-hmm.
If he just started quoting Shakespeare to get the media off his back. But
that would be cool to see. But that was awesome seeing. Really.
Yeah, I liked it though. I really, really enjoyed that show, and the Uber one wrapped up, and I liked it too. I'm glad it's kind of done.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was kind of the right amount of episodes. What was it? 6, I believe.
7.
Yeah, it could have been 6. It should have been 6. But the Uber episode was good. We finally saw the demise of the DK character played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Outstanding acting in that particular episode by Levitt. I thought he was. Yeah, I like the
ending when he breaks the fourth wall and he's like, so you're probably cheering my demise. Well, fuck you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and just goes on this monologue to chastise the audience for rooting against him.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that.
It is weird, that for so many of these mega billionaires, that they have to have this ultra alpha attitude in order to succeed. And that's not, there are exceptions to that, of course, but it just seems like there are so many of them who are just, they have that kind of Michael Jordan will to win, and that's how they become so goddamn rich. I can't do that.
Yeah, and I think again, I didn't work for Uber, but and I didn't read the book, but by watching the show, you just feel like the demise of this character is just so much, because if he'd have just paid attention to his female employees,
mm-hmm.
when the accusations and this egregious behavior was coming in, instead of just, he created a culture where everything was allowed to happen. At times, it didn't matter if his female employees, it didn't matter about their feelings or the professionalism, and that ended up being his demise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If he'd have just squashed that shit when it was happening, that dude would probably still be at Uber.
He would. Well, also part of his demise, he was breaking the law over and over again.
Right. Well, that's true too.
He was spying on us. I've never gotten the Uber app, so he didn't spy on me. I've never been in an Uber or a Lyft, but That, who the fuck wants that? People.
I've used Uber a lot whenever I'm in a city.
Mhm.
Like if I'm going to a concert or a game or something,
Mhm.
typically I would just get the Uber to get me at the hotel or something. So
Mhm.
so I wouldn't have to drive to the actual game and pay parking and shit like that.
Right. All right, I'm getting a lot of names in the chat of former players, very good players who have become really good coaches, Pat Riley, Jerry Sloan, and so forth. But I think what my point was is great players. Like Larry Bird was a great player. He's on a lot of top 10 lists. Bill Russell, another great player. Can you think of a great football player who has become a great head coach?
It's hard to, I know you're going to probably roll your eyes, but Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh wasn't a great player. He was a good player.
Mhm.
And he led the 49ers to the Super Bowl. I mean, so he didn't win, but still, that deserves some recognition, I think.
Yeah,
That's
but
the first thing.
I don't think he was either a great player or a great coach, given that he's never won a championship at any level. He hasn't won an NCAA championship. He hasn't won a Super Bowl. He never won one as a player. So he falls short of being great. Now, would I want Jim Harbaugh to coach my team? Yeah, because he's probably going to win one before he retires if he sticks in there. George PZ says George Hallis. He's got a little smiley face on that, so I'm not quite sure he's serious about that. Dick LeBeau, was Dick LeBeau a great player? Was he a great head coach? I'm not sure. Jordan says, although, how I'd love to debate you on the merit of Harbaugh. Oh, we're going to have Jordan on someday and talk about Harbaugh because, that's a very divisive figure, man. Jim Harbaugh.
I'd say this is a different sport, but
Mhm.
I got a name that if he hadn't been forced out, in my opinion, he would have won a championship as a manager, is Pete Rose.
Oh, for sure.
Pete was a solid manager and obviously a great fucking player.
Mhm.
But if he hadn't been forced out, I think Pete wins a World Series as the manager.
Mm-hmm. Jojo says Art Shell. Art Shell was definitely a great offensive lineman, and he did win a Super Bowl, so I'll give you that one.
And his first tenure at the Raiders, he was solid too.
Yep. Munoz says Ditka, and of course, yeah, I mean Ditka was definitely a great tight end,
Hall of Famer.
And unfortunately, Ditka should have won more Super Bowls, but that's another story. Maybe Jim, you and Jim could talk about that. That is the funniest thing. I would love to know from Jim McMahon, if he could run any offense, what offense would he like? Would he have liked to have run the Bill Walsh West Coast offense, or would he?
Or what he did at BYU.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I picture him as wanting to run that vertical offense, the Raiders offense, just go deep, baby, and have guys like Willie Gault as wide receivers. That's what he would have loved to have done. The West Coast offense, he would have been fucking bored by that. Totally believe that.
I question, I don't know if he would remember this or not, but in the pregame, something I'd like to ask him, but again, he may not have a recollection of this.
Mm-hmm.
In the pregame leading up to week 1 of '88, when we beat the Dolphins, the NBC had this collage, this story about all the Bears that were no longer there from the championship team between '85 and '88.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it was a different team that was going to be more dependent on McMahon and the offense versus being able to just sit back and, your defense. But among the players that was gone was Willie Gault. And when he was asked about it, he said something to the effect of, Willie wanted to be in LA so badly because he wants to be an actor. So we're happy with him being gone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and in hindsight, was he just playing like the answer that like he thought he should give? Because I thought Willie's loss was pretty big for the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
Because the guys they drafted, look, Wendell Davis was with us a bunch of years, had a terrible career-ending injury at the vet.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever seen that play in '93, it's disgusting.
2 ACL tears.
Yeah, his kneecaps go into his thigh. It's just so nasty. But he and Ron Morris never could match what Willie Gault was. I'm sorry, they didn't. And I mean, if anything, the closest thing to it was when they put Gentry at wide receiver.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Just being a guy that could hit a home run for you occasionally with the deep ball.
Mm-hmm.
Or a lot of times in the second half of Ditka's run, he would put Neil Anderson on a wheel route and they would go deep with it. And they beat the Lions in a game like that. McMahon against the Packers, first play of the game, deep, like 70-some yards, Neil Anderson touchdown. So they used Neil Anderson a lot whenever they could get a mismatch.
Yeah. Somebody in the chat room asked the question, the 46 defense was named after Fensick or Plank, and it was
Plank.
Dark Plank, yeah, because he wore the number 46, and because he asked Plank to basically play a linebacker position, because the linebackers, the outside linebackers, were lined up at the line of scrimmage. So he moved that strong safety up to the line of scrimmage, something that you see a lot of in today's football game. So he was the innovator of that, safety in the box. And so that's why he named it 46. And
speaking of safeties, one of the things I'd love to hear Jim's thoughts on, because this has always been a theory of mine, where he might look at me and say, "Kid, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about." But after the holdout and not winning a ring, like, it's crazy to me that they didn't put Todd Bell back in there. You could have put, especially because Gary was on his way out. Fensick was close to retiring. You could have put Dewerson and Bell together. And you're talking about ferocious fucking hitters back there. To me, that's a missed opportunity. The Bears never utilized Todd Bell ever again. And it's just a shame that guy's no longer with us and he didn't get a ring, because he deserved it, man.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Todd was one of my favorite safeties all time with the Chicago Bears. He was such a ferocious hitter. He seemed like a really nice guy, and he just.
Joe Washington says, "Fuck you, Todd Bell." You heard that hit?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons I love Todd Bell, is that hit on Joe Washington.
Yeah.
He and Hal Harris unfortunately held out for that '85 season. And at first I thought, oh my gosh, this is a Super Bowl team. What are you guys doing? You're going to ruin our chances. But no, they, the Bears just picked up. The Bears had such a
had Wilbur and Dave Dewerson in the bullpen.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to know who was behind them.
Yeah. Colossal talent on that team, man. Colossal. I mean, I remember thinking they had 9. I don't know if they made it to the Pro Bowl, but I remember thinking they have 9 Pro Bowlers on defense. I mean, these guys are just stacked with talent. I want that again, man.
Who wasn't a Pro Bowler? That's the easiest one. Who wasn't a Pro Bowler on the '85 team?
Richardson.
Okay, Mike Richardson. All right.
At corner.
Probably Leslie Frazier.
Oh, I have to say Leslie was a Pro Bowler.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if he made the Pro Bowl.
And Mike Hartenstein.
Hartenstein was the other guy who I would say probably didn't.
/ William Perry. Yeah, those are probably, I mean, Hartenstein started early on, and then Perry eventually came in, and they moved Hampton inside. But the point is, those are probably the only guys not making a Pro Bowl.
Well, and that's something that, when you come back to that argument of Buddy Ryan versus Mike Ditka, Ditka was right a few times, and Ryan was wrong. Ryan was wrong about William Perry. He kept calling him a fat SOB and couldn't play and so forth. And Ditka was convinced that this guy was going to play, and so he put him in on the offense just so he could get some playing time, and he ends up being a superstar. And then the other time was, of course, the game in Miami. Ditka was right.
With the refusal to go, because Wilbur's getting beat by Mark Duper.
Exactly. It's like, come on, man. This is pretty simple.
Let's get in a nickel here.
Yeah.
That's what scares me. That's like, I know the Bears, the players have different opinions on this, and they'd like to have just beat the shit out of Miami, but the ability of Marino to throw the ball against the blitz, the quickness of his release, that scares me. In hindsight, I'm glad the Patriots upset Miami. Because I don't know, man. If there was a team in the AFC that could have beaten them again, even though they're 15-1, it would have been Miami, I think.
I don't think so. It's so hard to sweep a season series in the NFL, particularly if the team is outside the division. I just don't see that happening. I would have loved for the Bears to beat the Dolphins in the Super Bowl. If that would have happened.
I'd have loved for it to happen. But if you wrote me a script and said that Miami upset them, I wouldn't say that, that's implausible.
Yeah, I
That's
guess
what
you're
I'm
right.
saying.
I guess you're right. Definitely not implausible, but I would have bet if I was a betting man back then that the Bears would have won. Now, back at that Super Bowl when Walter Payton fumbled in the first series, I thought to myself, okay, it's fucking over. The Chicago bad luck, the 69 Cubs and then the 69 Bears and every other terrible thing that's happened to me as a Chicago football fan is going to happen again in the Super Bowl. But instead, the Bears defense holds the Patriots to 3 points, and then the offense starts going.
I could understand why you'd be thinking that, even though I don't even have memories of watching that game live. Like I told you, 87 is my first wheelhouse of a season. But if you put it into context, New England won 3 road games.
Mm-hmm.
They upset the Jets, they upset the Raiders, and then they won in Miami, and they won at the Orange Bowl against Miami in the AFC Championship game. They hadn't won in Miami since 1971.
Mm-hmm.
And so they hadn't won there in 14 years, and they won, and it was a rain game, and they won just like our Super Bowl in Miami. So they upset these teams on paper that were better than them.
Mm-hmm.
All 3 of them were on paper better than New England, and yet here they are getting turnovers and like, oh shit, is that what they're going to do against the Bears?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but if you go back to week 2, the Bears kicked the shit out of them at Soldier Field too, though.
Nomad says, do we have a guy on the present Bears team that could have played in that era? Absolutely. I think, even a guy like Roquan Smith, because he reminds me a little bit of Wilbur Marshall, although Marshall had more weight on him, more muscle, bigger linebacker. But I think Roquan could have played an outside linebacker position in that 4-3. I think
Mike Brown's not with us anymore on the team, but Mike Brown would have been great for the 85 Bears.
Yes.
The heart and effort
Yep.
and the turnovers and great safety. Mike's the best safety I think the Bears have had outside of like the Dave Duersons and that we were talking about earlier, Todd Bells and Gary Fensick. I think Mike Brown has been the best safety the Bears have had outside of that championship window.
Yep. Eddie Jackson could not play in that show. I'm sorry.
It required physicality.
That's right. It's questionable whether he could play in this era.
I'm sure Mac could have.
Oh, yeah. Mac and Quinn.
Obviously, we traded him, but Mac could have played that. Robert Quinn could play that way.
Yep. On offense.
Akeem Hicks. Akeem Hicks would have fit in, absolutely would have been an 85.
Oh, yes. Somebody in the chat room said David Montgomery. Absolutely. Montgomery would have been a
Kyle Long would have been that kind of guy.
Oh, yeah. Kyle Long is still in the league. I think he just had a baby, but I think he's still in the Chiefs roster, or is he a free agent? I wonder what is going to happen to him. He's got a career in broadcasting. I would love to have him back on the show here and figure out, what's going on, brother? Do you want to come and coach for the Chicago Bears?
I wish he'd responded that time. I tweeted him because I was watching. I don't even remember which game it was now. It was an old playoff game. Obviously Howie was still playing. Mm-hmm. And you remember the United Way commercials they used to always have? They had Howie with his young boys, Christopher and Is Jim with us?
No, go ahead. I was recalling those commercials. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, he had Chris Long and Kyle as boys there with him in the commercial. Mm-hmm. And I sent it. I tweeted the commercial to Kyle. He never responded. I was like, look at this. This is fucking baby Kyle. 7-year-old Kyle Long. Who knew?
Leo Factor, also known as The Factor. Does Dan have a gut feeling when reacting to players Bears draft, or he lets it play out during the season? That's a good question.
Well, I don't watch college football enough to know what they did in college.
Right.
So I just, for some reason, I don't hate college football, but if I could do almost anything else, I would do something else.
Yeah.
Like I like baseball better than college football. I just can't get into it. So usually I feel like if I can watch the first season, then I get a pretty good feel if this guy, like, for example, I know you always argue with me on this point and think that I'm pumping, no, you need to just wait a little bit. But the corner, help me think of his name.
From the president?
Vildor. Kendall Vildor.
Kendall Vildor, yeah.
Oh, he screams bust to me. I hope that he plays well, but I gave up on him and I gave up on Cole Kmet, but I hope I'm wrong. I like the fact that I heard Komet is with Justin Fields working out.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
And by the way, I don't know if we've had a show since then. Terrible what happened to Dwayne Haskins. Just fucking terrible.
No, we have not had a show since then. Yeah, it is terrible.
And Schefter's taking a lot of heat because in his tweet, he made it sound like the most important part of it was that, this guy was a bust.
Yeah, it was badly phrased. It was insensitive. And you can report on that stuff later. But to send it out in a tweet and it's like the main thing in your tweet, that was just poor taste. And he's done that before. So, and I imagine a guy like Schefter, he's getting so much freaking information and he wants to be the first one with it out there. You know, these guys get a boner by having the information they get be the first out there on social media to beat out the guys that work for other sports outlets, news outlets and stuff. And so I imagine, that he composed that recklessly. But then again, some people are just kind of calling him out and saying, maybe you got a problem with the people of color and stuff. How quickly some people will look at it through that lens. And I'm not saying that they're right or wrong, but it was really, really a stupid thing that he did. And rest in peace, as PJ says, rest in peace. He's sorry for his family, as we all are.
Yeah, 24.
Mm-hmm.
24. I said it before, like with a real coach like Mike Tomlin,
mm-hmm.
It would, if you told me Tomlin turned the guy around, the same thing I'm using for Mitchell Trubisky.
Mm-hmm.
If you told me with a real coach, he could be a starting quarterback in the league, I'm buying.
Mm-hmm.
The guy had talent. It's just terrible that he died, man.
Yeah.
So young.
Zach reminds us that Gil Brandt also said some really insensitive things about Haskins. He was very quick to apologize for it. It took Schefter some time to apologize, and then his apology came in the form of a podcast, which I thought was really bullshit for King Pookie. This is one of the first times I've ever been on a video without a hat on, and King Pookie Nation says Aldo has hair. Not much of it, but I do have some hair. Brandt was doing radio when the news came in, and so he said some insensitive things. I haven't heard or seen a quote, but he immediately apologized probably 30 minutes later. I don't think a Schefter apology came until the next day when he addressed it in his podcast. And I thought that was in poor taste. He took down the insensitive tweet pretty quickly, and he should have replaced it with an apology, poor choice of words, blah, blah, blah. It's not good. And he just signed a huge effing contract with ESPN. So he's going to be around a lot longer to make more of those stupid mistakes.
And they lost him once before. He went to NFL Network at its inception.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah, the early years of NFL Network, he had left ESPN, or he had gone from ESPN to NFL Network. I don't know, like 4, 5, 6, 7, when it was like the heart of the show was Rich Eisen and Dion and Mariucci.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that he was their analyst, and when he left, but went back to ESPN, their analyst that replaced him was Phil's favorite, Jason Lockenfora.
Jason Lockenfora, Phil's favorite. Yeah, that's another guy who you wonder, if his sources aren't voices talking to him in his head.
I think he works for the Bears blog.
Who?
I'm kidding. Everyone always criticizes the Bears blog guy for making stuff up. I was like, well, it seems like that's where Lockenfora resides.
Another issue I wanted to bring up is there seems to be, I was listening to the three, I'm forgetting the title. Please, somebody help me in the chat room. The Three Kings podcasts. I hadn't listened to them in a while. Daniel Goodwin and a couple other guys who are interesting, always have interesting thoughts. And so I was listening to their podcast, and they were referring to an article where somebody was very critical of Ryan Poles. And so I put up a tweet getting people's reactions to what do you think, about Poles' work so far. And the vast majority of people approve of what he's doing. They're either hopeful or they think, this is definitely the way to go. So, and then a very small minority were upset and not hopeful. You're hopeful right now, right?
I'm hopeful, but if I could just throw you a curve,
Sure,
or a change up, maybe
please
to use an analogy. If this were a date, I would be looking at my phone at this point and be like, am I being stood up? Should I go ahead and get a fucking salad here?
Jim, where are you?
Don't break my heart, Jim.
See, I got it here.
Let's quote the Black Eyed Peas. The unrated version was "Don't funk with my heart," or is it "Don't fuck with my heart"? I don't know.
I think it's "Don't fuck with my heart."
Don't tell him that. But
do you think it would be rude if I said, "Hey, did you get the link?" Or he clearly
he's still coming
it.
on.
Yeah. Well, how
I mean, it's not like he's waiting around for us. I mean, and I get it. He's a retired.
Yeah. Well, I think
NFL player.
Somebody told me, I don't know if this is true, but that one of his kids handles his social media account.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's his son.
Okay, his son. So I don't know. Let's give him another 10 minutes, and then if he doesn't pop in, and I'll send him a carefully worded tweet. Hey, please. Come on.
We're friends with Mike North.
So anyway, that topic of you're still hopeful of this regime. I mean, it is frustrating that I actually did some research. One of the first things that Ryan Pace did, and I went back on Twitter to that era of January, whatever it was when he was first hired,
15.
to early April, just to see what people were saying about Ryan Pace, and everybody was in love with what he was doing. Everybody, oh wow, he is signing players to 1-year contracts. That is really smart. Oh, Ray McDonald, man, that's a great chance to take on this guy. It was effusive praise. And clearly that didn't work out. But
he got praised for getting rid of Alshon and Brandon Marshall too, and Martellus,
which were all good moves. I think those guys were troublemakers. I hated to see them go because I felt like a good coach could have probably turned them around, but they went on to play with other coaches and they were still problem child. So
Brandon Marshall, Hall of Fame talent.
Oh my gosh.
If he could have just had that diagnosis maybe early in his career and just stuck with, like, if Mike Shanahan isn't forced out and he gets to play his whole career with somebody that believes in him, then I think, he would have been a Hall of Famer.
PJ says, with all the low-end signings, I hope that Poles knocks the draft out of the park with multiple trade backs and obtaining about 6 or more starters in the draft. See, I got a problem with that, PJ. I think that those first 3 picks that they have, all of them in day 2, 2 of them in round 2, and 1 of them in round 3. I think those are the 3 out of the top 71 picks. I don't think he should trade those. I think that you can definitely find 3 starters with those picks. I think that if you're going to trade back and get a couple of 4th round picks, a 5th round pick, or what have you, just to add more draft picks, your odds of getting a starter material players are reduced drastically. Even some of the promising offensive linemen that are said to be, 4th round, 5th round picks, you read the scouting reports. I talked to Greg Gabriel. I talked to Danny and Neil. These guys are not sure locks that they, a 4th round offensive lineman is even going to make the team. But you have 2 second rounders and a 3rd. You really got to work hard to blow it that you're not going to find a starter. Now, the thing is can they become a superstar? The odds are a lot better that you'll find a superstar in rounds 2 and 3 than they are 4, 5, 6. And I know everybody's going to say, well, what about this player? He was drafted.
What about Brady?
Right. Well, yeah, but think about all the guys that didn't,
Speaking of Brady, did you see that article about that sadistic plan he had with Miami?
Oh my goodness.
How is he
You
getting
sent
a
me
pass
that.
for this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he didn't do anything wrong, right?
So he
Tell people what
retires as an illusion with the allegedly with the idea of becoming a minority owner of the Dolphins, and then suddenly to pop up as, oh, now I'm the player for Miami because he wanted away from the coach and was trying to whore his way to the Dolphins, is what I'm saying. But after they had the Brian Flores lawsuit, allegedly they are like, well, we need to keep this squeaky clean from here on out. So we're not going to try this underhanded shenanigans, nefariousness, is that a word, to get you over to Miami. But it's still just the fact that he thought at the time when he was retiring it was disingenuous. Ooh, I've always thought Brady was a liar and was part of that New England cheating, and it just adds to it to me, man. I know everyone worships him because he's won, and rightfully so, but goddamn, I don't like Tom Brady.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of him either. I know the Parisi brothers who do the hockey show here at the network and the baseball show, Crosstalk. They're huge fans of Tom Brady. I got to give him his props. He's got 7 rings. He definitely deserves credit for those championships, but I don't think he's a great quarterback. I mean, Dan Marino had a much better arm. Joe Montana was a much smarter, I wouldn't say much smarter, but he was a smarter quarterback.
John Elway
was a tremendous athlete. He was just much better. So the counter argument is, well, so why did Brady win all these championships and those other guys didn't? Well,
there's a lot of help along the way with video cameras and stolen playbooks and deflating balls. There's a lot of smoke around these fires.
That's right. So I Cliff Victoria says goats aren't the nicest people, like Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, etc. I agree with that, but this story that Dan is referring to it just was kind of a duplicitous thing by Tom Brady, and it is what it is. I don't want to take anything away from his play. He's great. But
if you're Tampa, though, how do you kind of feel about that? Honestly, if you're the owner of Tampa, you're like, fuck it. He's going to sell us so many jerseys. We're going to win more games with him without him. So we'll take him back.
Right.
But if you're Bruce Arians, don't you kind of feel double crossed by this guy?
Absolutely.
Is that why Arians left, you think?
Absolutely. That's why Arians left. I think, the story says that Brady was with, after he had that meeting with the Dolphins owner, he came and talked with the Bucs owner. And then the very next day, Bruce Arians announced his retirement. I think he came back and said, hey, he went to the Bucs owner and said, hey, I'll come back if Bruce steps aside. And then Bruce meets the media and says, I'm retiring and I'm doing it my way. I want my guy, Todd Bowles, to take over and stuff. That was the arrangement there. That's how I feel that went down. And you know what? You can make the argument, and I might buy it, that Brady deserves that kind of special treatment. He's earned it by the fact that, in his very first year, 2-year-old quarterback wins a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Bucs. I don't know, man, but I'll tell you one thing. I would love for the Bears to beat the shit out of them in the NFC conference championship game, I guess, because we're not playing them this year, right? I don't think they're on our schedule.
I don't think so.
I want to beat Brady. I want to beat Rodgers. I want to beat all these great quarterbacks. That's what I want as a Chicago Bears fan. This is what I dream of. I don't want to back into the playoffs like we did 2 years ago. I don't want to have a mediocre team again and again and again and again. I want, if back to the Poles subject, Poles is doing the right thing, but I am a bit impatient, and I would like to see some major acquisitions soon. I know it's probably not going to happen until 2023 in terms of free agent, and we'll only know late in the season if any of these draft picks are going to be stellar guys. But I am impatient. I think he's doing the right thing. That's the way I would do it if I was the general manager of the team. Blow it all up and start all over. Accumulate dollars for free agency. Accumulate draft picks that will translate to big time players. Build around your quarterback. I don't know. I just I'm impatient. That's the only criticism I have. I wish there were some players in free agency that I wished Poles would have gone after, and certainly the Larry Ogunjobi thing doesn't look good. I mean, it's no fault of his that the guy failed the physical, but it went. Whose fault was it that the physical wasn't done until 3 days later? And Ryan Poles himself admitted that there were players that signed elsewhere during that period that he would have pursued if he knew that Larry Ogunjobi had a bad ankle or plantar fasciitis, whatever the shit that's called. Fasciitis. You've ever had that, Dan?
No.
I hear it's awful.
That's more of an NBA player thing.
Yeah, but it happens in football too. But yeah, you're right. It is a lot of Scottie Pippen had it. I remember that. Tony Moy says, I'd rather keep next year's top 10 pick. What if Poles doesn't like Fields after this year? He'll be able to draft his own quarterback. Yeah, Dan and I talked about that, because there was a story. I think Kevin Fishbane wrote that Fields has to prove himself to Poles, because if not, then Poles might be looking for a quarterback in the 2023 draft, and that dejected Dan Aguirre, right, Dan?
Oh, it did. It did. I mean, come on, man. Like, Phil Jackson was what? Michael Jackson's fourth coach with the Bulls, wasn't he?
Yeah. Albeck, Lockery, Collins, and then Phil Jackson. Yes.
Yeah. So what if Phil to come in and say, you know what? We want to get our own shooting guard. This guy, he hasn't won anything. I mean, you'd be crazy. Not that I'm comparing Jordan to Justin Fields, but I'm just saying at some point recognize the talent you have and build around the talent that you have. But why do you? Or is he that much of an egomaniac? He's like, I didn't draft him. It's like it's got to be who I draft. I mean, you'd be a fucking raging narcissist.
Yeah.
If you couldn't recognize the talent you had or that was giving to you, you inherited. I mean, you can't like come in with a brand new roster the next season, like 53 new guys from other teams. I mean, you're going to have some holdover, and that holdover should be number one.
Tony Moy says Fields has to prove that he's improved this year. And you're right. I mean, the key things for Justin Fields is protecting the ball, right? We were all very, very upset that he fumbled so much. I mean, I think he turned over the ball more than any other quarterback in the NFL last season. So you
probably got hit more than any other quarterback in the NFL too, though.
Very, very true. But there were also times that he held the ball a little too long. And clearly, the Matt Nagy didn't do him any favors. You and I were at the Cleveland game, and those poor outside tackles were being dominated by the Browns' outside pass rushers, and Matt Nagy did nothing. It's almost like, who was it? Was it you or somebody in the bar room? I know a lot of other fans were complaining and saying that, Stephen Nagishi saying that it felt like Matt Nagy was purposely trying to see Fields fail in that game because he did absolutely nothing to help the guy. A rookie quarterback who's had very little practice time with the starters, and you're leaving him out there with, at the game, it was in the third quarter, and you and I looked at each other and said, what happened to play action passes? It's like,
if you listen to our show, I guess we were on Tuesday, like, because we both traveled back home from Cleveland. I'm fairly certain on that show we were both saying this is a fireable offense. Like, he should be fired this week going into that Detroit game. There should be somebody else coaching. That game alone is just a microcosm of his ineptitude in the 4 seasons that he was here. God, he's just a terrible coach. I wish him nothing but the worst. Like, usually when somebody leaves, even if it's John Fox, I'm like, okay, I hope he's all right in Indy, whatever, But no, I don't want Nagy to, like, I have malice toward this man. Like, he took a Super Bowl ready defense and wasted it. and wasted Mitchell Trubisky, or maybe Mitchell rebound in Pittsburgh, and now he was about to waste Justin Fields. Yeah. God, he's just fucking terrible. He has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah,
but thinks he's great.
Well, he sure does. I mean, what I would like to see is, well, I shouldn't say this, but what I was going to say.
I would have liked to have seen him make a Jada Pinkett Smith joke at Will Smith anywhere in the country, just as long as there are videos around. Well, you're going to be bald like me pretty soon, girl. You know, smack him in the face.
You're terrible, but you're funny. I would love for Patrick Mahomes to give us the real lowdown on Matt Nagy. You know, it's like, Patrick, we're halfway through the season and things haven't gone as expected. Your numbers are down, the lowest in your career. What do you attribute that to? And for Patrick to say, fucking Matt Nagy.
This guy is like a boil that you can't get rid of.
He's been asking me to do this and do that. Well, what about the loss of Tyreek Hill? No, it's Matt Nagy.
It's all Matt Nagy.
All right, it is 9 o'clock. I am going to text.
Let me give a shout out now to our man Tooch too. He's not feeling well tonight.
Yeah, nobody's asked about Tooch in the chat room. It's like everybody's waiting on Jim McMahon.
On Jim, yeah, I'm really starting to feel frantic now. I was nervous before he came on, but now I'm nervous for a different reason.
All right, so what should I write here? What should I say?
Jim, just checking in. You're still coming on with us, or? I mean, it's well worth the wait, you know, if he comes on, but.
Oh my gosh, yes. I just don't want him to come on at 10:15 or 11:15 your time. I mean, you only have 15 minutes with him.
Yeah, if he doesn't come on, it's going to be huge false start on us.
All right, so checking in, hoping you can still make it. Oh, actually, God. Praying. Even Dan, the atheist.
Please. To whatever denomination you subscribe to, sir.
That's right. Oh, man. Oh, what happened? Oh, shit. You can send this with effects. I didn't know that. You can send a text with effects. That's a slam, a loud, a gentle, invisible link. Invisible link wouldn't help.
Man, I don't want to. Don't make it seem like you're gonna. It's some way to piss him off with it.
Oh my gosh, it's a bitch getting old, man. Today I went to the supermarket to get some things. My wife is having hip surgery later this week, so I wanted to get some things because I'll be cooking for her and doing all this stuff. And all of a sudden, I'm putting something into the cart, and I'm like, I don't recognize any of the shit in my cart. I've been walking around for an aisle with somebody else's grocery cart.
Oh no!
And so I'm running back to return the cart to its rightful owner, and I see this lady, like, she's looking around left and right and wondering where the hell my cart going. And fortunately, she was a sweetheart, and but that's the third time it's happened to me in the last year. I just get kind of tuned out and making all these mistakes that you see people in their 60s do. They're walking outside in their underwear. Oh man, Jim McMahon is here. He is actually here. Oh my goodness. Hold on a second. Let me fix this video here very quickly. Jim McMahon is in the house. I should have had this better done here. There we go. Jim McMahon, how are you?
What's going on, kid?
I am doing great. My name is Aldo. The guy pictured above me is Dan Aguirre. And I hope you don't mind if we swear on this show, because we typically do. And I just want to tell you that Dan Aguirre right now is jerking off because he is so happy that you are on the show and talking to him. You and I talked once before when you were on the Mike North Advantage, and we're really, really super happy that you're here with us. Dan has several of your jerseys. He wants to engage you in Bears talk and talk about your life, and really whatever you want to talk about, we're here for you. And again, very grateful that you're here with us today.
All right, bud. No worries.
All right. Dan, it is all yours, my brother.
Jim, I just want to say, sir, I'm sorry that I'm sick. I'm not sound like shit. I apologize. But it's an honor just to talk with you. I may seem like a dude in his 40s now, but I was a kid when you were playing. And so you were my childhood hero. I don't mean to sound disingenuous or embarrass you or anything.
Hell, I'm old.
I cried when you were traded to San Diego. That's I was only 8, but I cried.
Yeah, I did too, but it was happy tears.
Can I ask you about that? At the time you were traded, Harbaugh made a bunch of he was saying a bunch of shit that you were flashing Tom Zach signs on, because you remember you had a preseason game against the Bears as soon as the trade happened.
Right.
Essentially. And he claimed that you were trying to help Tom Zach win the job and flashing signals. Is that true? Did that really happen?
No. I mean, that's hell. I didn't care what the hell their signals were. I wasn't watching what their signals were. It was a preseason game. It didn't mean anything. I could care less. So, whatever he was worried about, I don't know what. But it wasn't like I was running down the sidelines yelling at the defensive guys going, hey, he's going to run it, he's going to throw it. I mean, who cares? It's preseason.
One game that sticks out from my head that year when you were a Charger, I only got to watch from afar because we didn't have Sunday ticket back then, so I wasn't seeing a lot of San Diego games. But I remember you got to beat Buddy. I think it was in an overtime game, but you all beat Philly out there. What was it like for you? Because we all know the 85 Bears stuff. I don't want to ask you the same questions. But for you, ultimately, you're going to go back and play with Buddy in 90 with the Eagles. Yeah. What was it like playing for him as the DC versus when he was actually your head coach?
Well, I was happy that he brought me into Philly. I mean, we had a pretty good ball club there. And, he pretty much let me do what I wanted to do. So that was cool. But
Jim's frozen a little on us. I'm sure we'll get the signal back in a second.
I sure hope so.
He's got a very pleasant look on his face as he's frozen right now. There he is. You're back, Jim.
Hi.
Oh, could you hear me?
We missed you after, we lost you for about 5 seconds.
All right. Where was I when you lost me?
You said that Philly had a good team.
Okay. Yeah, and I told Buddy to his face, I said, you were a great defensive coordinator. You changed the game of football. The West Coast offense came into being because of Buddy's defense. If you didn't get rid of the ball in 3 steps, your ass was hit. So, but I said, you're a terrible head coach because, as a head coach, you've got to be involved in every facet of your team. And Buddy only cared about defense. He just, he told our offensive coordinator, just run the ball, we'll score on defense and win. That was his mentality. Oh, man. And I said, Buddy, you play the Giants twice a year, the Redskins, the Cowboys. You can't beat these guys 3-0 or 7-0. You got to score points. But he just did not care about offense. That was just time for his defense to rest. That's how he looked at offense.
Well, I'm going to bounce around topics because I don't know how much time we have with you. Something I've always wanted to know if there was ever any validity to this. When Mike was fired, Mike Ditka, in January of 93, there was a report going around like a day before that was suggesting that he wanted to bring you back to the Bears, that he had given up on Harbaugh. Was there any truth to that? Was there ever any talks about you coming back before Mike got fired?
No, not that I remember. No, I wouldn't have came back.
Great.
I wasn't going to go through that again. No.
And I guess you can recall beating the Bears twice that year. Of course, it was Wani's first year, but you beat us on Monday Night Football at Soldier Field.
When I was with the Vikings?
Yeah, you swept the Bears.
Yeah.
You're the only player that could leave the Bears, and I'd be like, all right, fuck it. I'm glad he still got the W. The only Bears player ever to go to another team.
Yeah, that was nice to be able to be. I don't think I lost to him once I left, so that was kind of nice.
And with regards to the Minnesota thing, I always thought, or I think I heard you speak about this. I don't want to misquote you, but because you took a beating in that playoff game against the Giants with the Vikings. Yeah. Is it true that you sustained a broken neck in that game and they didn't tell you and allowed you to go back in there?
Well, I believe that's where it happened. I mean, my legs went numb twice in the game, so I'm pretty sure that's when it happened. I told the guy, I said, look, my legs went numb, and I wasn't really having any pain in my neck. And I missed a series or two, went back in, rolled out, threw a pass, remember the DN jumped up to block the pass, missed it, and just barely brushed my helmet today, which be a big flag today. But and my legs went numb again, and so I left the game for good after that. But we ended up losing, and it was a playoff game. So you go home, the next day you go in, you see the coach, and he says, "All right, see you next year." You don't really take an exit physical. You go in and see the trainer, and he says, "You feeling all right?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I'm doing okay." It wasn't until I was going through workman's comp about probably 12 years ago, and you got to take a full physical, and they X-ray every part of you, and they said, "Oh, when'd you break your neck?" And I said, "Oh, I didn't know I broke my neck." And I said, "I have a pretty good idea when I did it," but he goes, "Yeah, look, your C6 and 7 are cracked and compressed, so it was broken at some point." And I played 3 more years, so I'm lucky to still be walking. I'm not walking right now. Shit, I had ankle surgery 4 months ago just to take off some bone spurs and part of my ankle bone. I played with a broken ankle for I don't know how long. They kept saying that was sprain. Typical team doctors. But I just forgot where the hell I was going with that. What was I talking about before we
were talking about you being hurt with your neck while you were a Viking.
Oh yeah, and then my surgery. Yeah, so ended up having 3 surgeries on my foot because I got an infection. Actually, a couple of infections. I thought I was going to lose my foot. There was a big hole at the top of it, and on the side where the ankle bone is, all the skin had blown apart because the infection got so bad it swelled up and just blew apart. So when I saw that, I didn't know if I was going to have another foot. But 4 months later, the big hole's almost filled in, but I still can't walk. I came here to. I'm actually in Chicago right now, staying at my son's place in Northbrook, and going through rehab with my old trainer. So hopefully I'll be able to walk before I leave here on Sunday.
We definitely wish you well on that. Your most famous playing moment with regards to an injury, of course, is the Charles Martin thing. But I remember reading your book as a kid, and again, I'm paraphrasing. I don't want to misquote you, but it seemed like you said in the book that season you were already hurt. And you almost played because like Dan Hampton was like, talking shit in front of the team saying like, "Come on, Mac, why aren't you practicing?" And like calling you out. And considering he was such a great player and a Hall of Famer, why do you think he would ride you like that? Because everyone else can see you're giving your whole body for the team. Like, why would a team leader like Dan Hampton like constantly just besmirch you?
Who cares? No, I didn't care. But yeah, I shouldn't have played after the first game of '86. I dislocated my
throwing Browns game, right?
Yeah, I dislocated my throwing shoulder in that game, and ended up, trying to play. I think I played 6 games that year. I kept trying to play. They kept telling me there was nothing wrong with my arm, and I kept saying, "Look, it's coming out of the socket." And the doctor was like, "Oh no, it couldn't be. You know how painful that is?" I go, "Yeah, it happens 100 fucking times a day." And so one day I could practice, the next day I couldn't move my arm. And so, and I think the trainer was telling the defensive guys that I just didn't want to play, which was bullshit. We had a chance to repeat as Super Bowl champions. I wanted to be a part of that. And so I just kept playing. And then right after the Charles Martin game, we had a break. I think we had a bye. And I went and saw Frank Jobe out in LA, who's a great shoulder and elbow guy. And he'd seen me before about my shoulder. And within 5 minutes, he said, "Oh, it's coming out of the socket." I said, "I've been telling this asshole that for the last 10 weeks. And they kept telling me there was nothing wrong with it." And so our team doctor actually flew out to watch the surgery. And as soon as he cut me from the top of my shoulder down to my armpit. And as soon as he opened me up, my doctor said, "Oh, my God, he wasn't lying. This is what Frank Jobe told me." So I said, "Why the hell would I be lying anyway? I know what's going on with my body. I've been hurt enough to know what's going on." And I had no labrum at all. I mean, I think I dislocated it in high school. So I tore a big chunk out of it then. And then over the years, all the throwing and all the weights and everything else just wore it down to nothing. And it was not, I didn't think I'd ever play again. And neither did Frank Jobe. He said, I pieced it.
Oh, did we lose Jim?
He should be back. It seems like we're getting an intermittent freeze here. He should be back any second. There you're back, Jim.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah. So he pieced it together as best he could. I was very lucky to be able to ever play again after that. But they told me it would take 2 years to play, and I was back playing in 10 months. So, I was going through rehab 3 times a day, and it was brutal, but I was able to get back.
And that's the stuff of legends, man. I mean, do you remember the first 3 games you came back? You hadn't played since November of '86. I mean, you're on the cover of Sports Illustrated, the Wounded Bear. Will Jim McMahon played in 1987. The first 3 games back, you lead miraculous comebacks at Tampa Bay, Kansas City, and at Green Bay. First 3 games back. Unbelievable stuff, man.
Well, it wasn't like I didn't know the game. I mean, as long as my body was physically able to do something, I mean, I could play. The game's not going to change. So it wasn't, and our offense didn't change for the 7 years I was there. So, why even look at the game, the playbook? They're all the same.
And at that point, you had won 28 consecutive starts, if you count the postseason. And I don't know if you remember this or not, but the first time you lost a game was on Monday night at Denver.
Yeah, in Denver.
It wasn't even your fault. You threw for over 300 yards, but Butler missed 2 extra points.
Yeah.
So you lost 31-29.
Yeah, it would have been nice to keep that streak going.
Man, to build you up, Jim, because a lot of people, just because you bounced around a little bit, you don't get as much recognition as you deserved as a player.
Yeah, they all talk. They all worry about stats. That's all they care about, stats. How many yards you throw for, how many touchdowns. I didn't really. I would love to throw the ball more. Hell, that's all I did in college was throw it. So I was very bored and disappointed in Chicago with that offense. And it was just that's just the way it is. I won a hell of a lot more than I lost, and that's the most important thing to me.
Absolutely. And if you don't mind me focusing on negative just for a minute, because this is stuff I've always wanted to ask you. Of the 3 playoff teams that lost, of course, the Flutie game. I don't want to ask you about Doug. Everybody does. That game, and then the one where you have the lead against Doug Williams and you're up 14-0.
Yeah.
And then the championship game at home against San Francisco. Which one of those is like the biggest, man, we had this shit? Which is the hardest loss of those? Which of those 3 teams should have won the Super Bowls? I guess what I'm trying to get at.
All of them.
I thought so too.
All of them should have won it, but the NFC Championship game is the worst because you're in the Super Bowl, you win that game. So it was frustrating to lose to Washington 2 years in a row after, like you said, we went up 14 points just before halftime.
You took a shot when you threw that touchdown to
Rob I dislocated my left shoulder on that hit, and I probably shouldn't have played the rest of the game. I couldn't throw anymore because you need your left side to throw, even though I was right-handed, and I just couldn't put anything on the ball in the second half. I just should have came out, but that's just me. I wanted to play.
Yeah, and it's still at the end. You had it looked like, I don't know if Willie ran the wrong route or what, but you almost threw a touchdown that would have won it late in the fourth quarter. But yeah, the 14-0 lead, that's the one that always sticks out for me. It's like, how did the Bears defense give up this lead? It's cold, it's fair weather. Yeah. Walter's last game, Fensick's last game, Wilbur's last game, Willie Galt's last game with the Bears, all these, Otis Wilson's last game. It's like the whole team fell apart after this one game,
Yeah, it was unfortunate. We had played 3 NFC Championship games in 5 years and only won 1, which sucks.
But man, if you played with the what if game with me, if for some reason somehow you all hold on to beat Washington, if Doug or Darrell Green doesn't return that punt back for a touchdown, and you still win the game, you're going to host Minnesota the next week. You're going to beat the Vikings. You're going back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
There's no way you're going to lose to Minnesota the next week. No way. So San Francisco lost. If you recall, Montana was benched. They lost to Minnesota out at Candlestick.
I don't remember all that. I just remember our loss.
Yards receiving.
Yeah, those are frustrating times for
beating Doug Williams is my point. And I always thought that was so disappointing as a fan. But the 88 one, though, I honestly believed when they said you were starting and Tom Zach wasn't. God, I hate admitting this. But during the Fog Bowl, I was a kid. So I thought, now I know you and Tom Zach were great friends and everything. But I thought at the time, like, Tom Zach's the enemy. Like, I don't want Jim traded. Like, so when he got hurt against Philly, I was like, yes, bring Jim in. We need a win with Jim. And then when they said you were going to start against San Francisco, I thought there's no way we're losing this game.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And they kicked their ass.
Do you think it was, I tried to like come up with the reason. And the first time you all beat him on Monday Night Football, you had Richard Dent there just, hitting Montana every other play, but he broke his leg and he missed the games. Do you think maybe that's it? Was that the reason Montana was like going crazy? Like what happened from your perspective?
We didn't play worth a damn on offense either. I mean, they were ready to play. They, it was really cold that day. I remember that. And I think we thought maybe they just, just tuck tail and run, but they whooped our ass from start to finish.
Did you think at that time that I'm out of here after this? Like, because that ended up being your last game. Was that a possibility in your mind?
I wanted out in 87. Right before the 87 season. That's why they drafted Harbaugh, because I told them I wanted out. And they wouldn't let me go. Ditka wouldn't let me go. He kept telling me, because McCaskey wanted me gone after I'd written the book and said, he didn't have no qualifications to run the team and then this and that. So he wasn't a big fan. So he wanted me gone, that summer when he saw the book. But Ditka said, no, I got nobody else. And so he waited 2 more years.
I've got one more question that I've been dying to hear. I mean, again, it's a what if, but when you remember the game that Steve Fuller started and won at Washington, a playoff game.
Yeah.
And they said, this is what CBS reported at the time, if the Bears would have somehow beaten San Francisco in the championship game, that Jim McMahon would have been ready to play Super Bowl 19 coming off the kidney. Was that true?
No, not a chance. Yeah, it took me about 6 months to even be able to move and work out. It was brutal. I couldn't do anything but lay on the couch.
Well, that alone shows how tough you are. The fact that you or even the Charles Martin game, people don't know you played almost the rest of that entire game.
Yeah, I went back in after that, but yeah.
I'm just saying, so many people just lose over the time, like how tough you were as an athlete and as a player and all the winning. Because I hear detractors will say, oh, man, anybody could have won with that team. But Steve Fuller didn't win with that team. Doug Flutie didn't win with that team. Mike Tomczak didn't win, and neither did Jim Harbaugh. Jim McMahon won with that team.
Yeah.
You made a difference. I mean, you were the determining factor, in my opinion, and I'm not trying to – I mean, obviously Walter's Walter, but, I mean, you're the guy. You're the catalyst. You're the reason we can talk about this Super Bowl, and I honestly believe that to be true.
Yeah, they didn't know how to win. We were always going to play great defense, but and the defense always thought they were the shit. But you can't win with just defense. I mean, that's been proven. You need a good defense to win, but you need offense as well. You need special teams, and you need good coaching. And sometimes we had some of each, and sometimes we didn't have any of anything. So, but it's tough business. But I'm glad I'm out.
Hey,
what was it like when you were there, when Ditka had the heart attack?
At the time, because they said it wasn't a bad one. It was, just a scare or whatever. I don't know. He had one, but, obviously he lived through that. So I actually went and saw him in the hospital. I wished him well. I would have loved to play with Mike. He was a hell of a football player. Played the game the way it's supposed to be played. And, had he ever been in my huddle, he would have understood me a hell of a lot better too. So I think he thought I did stuff just to piss him off. I did stuff to win games. And sometimes, he didn't like that.
let me jump in here real quick, Jim, because one of the things that you mentioned in your book is that you didn't like to look at film. You just wanted to go out there and play. And how is, take me into your mind when you are under center and you're dropping back to throw. what is it that you see that other quarterbacks need to watch film and watch it over and over and over again to understand what the defense is doing? Because it's really a remarkable thing that it just came second nature to you.
Well, when you're watching film, you're watching from the top of the stadium view.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I couldn't, you know, I don't see very well anyway, so I couldn't see how far off guys were, or whether or not they were inside shade or outside shade. But I knew where they lined up, and you know, just by deduction, there's only certain things they can do from where they line up. You know, they can try to fool you, line up here, back off, which a lot of teams do, but a lot of teams they play coverage based on the front they have.
Mm-hmm.
So if they have an even front, they're going to play these coverages. If they have an odd front or an over front, an even or odd or over, whatever they used to call it,
Mm-hmm.
They play this kind of coverage behind that. And so if you just look at your game plan at all, you know, they give you a damn thing this thick every week about, you know, their tendencies on certain downs and this and that, and this is the coverages they play. And so if they're lined up in a certain, like an even line, and there are three coverages they like, and the DBs are not lined up in one of those three coverages, that should alert you. All right, something's up. And usually when something's up, they're trying to bring a new blitz. And so it's very simple by where people are lined up, who's coming and who's not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to me, it was very simple. I mean, you look at people's eyes sometimes, because they'll eyeball people that they have. Like linebackers will be eyeballing the back, or a safety will be eyeballing. You know, there's no reason for a weak safety ever to look at the tight end unless he's got coverage on the tight end. And I remember I called an audible against Washington one year. It wasn't a playoff game. It was just the regular season. And we come out of the huddle, and the weak safety was looking for the tight end. And I'm like, okay, because the strong safety tried to disguise it. He was off about 6 or 7 yards and didn't really move until the snap of the ball. But I knew he had to be coming. And sure enough, I called an audible, just a quick slant to Embry Moorhead on the outside, and he took it in for a score. I knew that guy couldn't catch him, but you know, just little things like that you just pick up on just playing.
What offensive coordinator would you have loved to have played with? And I got to tell you, just before you answer that question, I too, as a diehard Chicago Bears fan, am just angry that you never got to run the offense the way you wanted to run it. Because I saw you play at BYU. You were putting up incredible numbers. That day when you came out of that limo, I was saying to myself, finally, we're going to have a modern offense in Chicago. Let this guy play. And then unfortunately, Mike, you know, had that very, very, very conservative style of play. So I wonder if the ownership of the Bears said, hey, who do you want us to hire as an offensive coordinator, or even, you know, just a fantasy pick as your offensive coordinator, who would you have loved to have played quarterback for?
It would have been the guy who came to Chicago in 1978, Doug Scoville. He came from BYU. He was only there for 1 year,
Mm-hmm.
and then he came back to BYU. Thank God. I mean, the guy was offensive genius. I mean, I learned more from that guy than anybody else that I played for. You know, I played for 7 different teams in the pros, and nobody was as good as this guy.
Mm.
He just understood, you know, defense, how to overload, you know, zones, you know, man to man, how to pick people open. I mean, he was just incredible. He would sit at his office at BYU, and his office faced the mountains. And I'd always try to just sneak by his office, because if he knew I was in there, I'd have to be in on the chalkboard and drawing up plays and defenses and stuff. And you know, thank God he made me do that, because I learned a hell of a lot from him. But he would just sit there and he'd say, see him out there? And I'm looking up at the mountain guy. You know, is this guy nipping at the bottle? Because he used to keep a bottle in the bottom of his drawer too. And we knew when he came out to practice and his nose was all red that he'd been in that bottle. So, yeah, he would just say, you see those? They're wide open. Look at them. They're all wide open. I mean, he just loved throwing the ball, scoring a lot of points. He'd always say, let's just light up that scoreboard. Let's make it look like Las Vegas. Just bing, 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 lights everywhere. And, you know, I don't know if he coached receivers here or quarterbacks when he was here in 1978, but no, he ended up going back to BYU. I played with him for one more year, in my junior year, actually. And then he left again, went to become the head coach of San Diego State, ended up back in the pros with the Philadelphia Eagles, and then passed away after practice one day. He was on the bike or the treadmill or something, and then just dropped dead.
Wow. That's sad.
But he was one hell of a coach.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Dan. I've got a couple more, but please jump back in.
All right, one of my theories. I'm just a meatball fan. I just wanted to see what you thought about this. I know you're not the coach; you don't make the substitutions. But I always thought after the Super Bowl year that the Bears never utilized Todd Bell again. I thought that was a mistake. Like, what do you think? I thought if they put Duerson with Bell, that could have been like.
Well, they never brought him back after the strike.
I'm sorry, say it again, sir.
They never brought him back after the strike. They sat out in '87.
Well, even '86 when he comes.
No,
back,
it was. Yeah, it was '87. They sat out. No, it was
86, wasn't it?
The championship team.
They missed the Super Bowl. They sat out the.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But when he comes back, like they could have put him with Duerson and been incredible back there, I thought. But
I don't even think they came back. I think he cut him or traded him. I don't ever remember seeing him again.
That's my point. He was on special teams in '86. Special teams. The dude was a monster.
Yeah, he could knock people out. That's for sure.
Just a missed opportunity for the Bears.
Well, they've had a lot.
That's true. I know you don't like to watch football. I've heard you over the years say it's boring to you and stuff, especially since you don't play. But at any time, have you gotten to see our guy Justin Fields, the new guy?
Very briefly, probably maybe a series. You don't learn a hell of a lot watching a series.
No.
Right.
But he played at a big time college. He's got skills. So, it doesn't really matter. If he doesn't have anybody around him, it ain't going to matter. I don't know how good their offensive line is. That's the key. Doesn't really matter who your backs and receivers are. If you ain't got 5 guys up front, they're going to fight. You ain't got no chance.
Let me get some questions in here from the chat room. Bruce Ollie, Walter Jordan. I think we know who his fans are, who he is fans of. He wants to know if you've got a good Walter Payton story you can share with us. We know that Walter was a great prankster. Did he ever pull a prank on you?
Other than the M80s, you used to hang off the racquetball court with a long string, and he'd be out of practice for 10 minutes before those things would blow up. But the poster that we did, the Chicago Vice, if you remember that poster back in the day.
Yeah.
That was his Lamborghini. Those were all his guns. Mm-hmm. He opened up the trunk of the Lamborghini, and there was a bunch of cops around too. They're like, "Are those all your weapons?" And he's like, "Yeah." I mean, he liked his weapons, that's for sure.
Somebody's asking here, do you regret that the Chicago Bears drafted you? And I'm praying that you will say no. But really, do you regret it?
Not at all. I mean, I wasn't even supposed to go to Chicago. So I was very surprised when the Baltimore Colts were drafting right before Chicago was that year. Mm-hmm. And I'd been back to Baltimore 3 or 4 times. I was having lunch and dinner with Johnny Unitas at his restaurant. He was telling me how great the city is, this and that. I'm going to love the city. And, but I had forgotten, I had told my attorney I really didn't want to go to Baltimore. And so on draft day, when it came up, I'm still thinking I'm going to the Colts. And Pete Rozelle says, in the Colts draft quarterback, so I'm thinking it's me. And they go, Art Schleister from Ohio State. And I was like, oh, shit, what happened? And then my attorney called right away. He goes, well, how'd you like that? I go, well, what happened? He goes, you told me you didn't want to play there. And so I told them not to draft you because they couldn't even sign their running back at the time. I think it was Curtis Dickey. Mm. And they were having trouble signing him. So they said, he told them, don't bother drafting me. They'll never sign me. So they passed. And so, the next call was Chicago. And the only thing I knew about Chicago was that my folks met in Chicago in the service. They were both in the Army. My older brother was born here. And other than that, all I knew was not the longest yard, the Piccolo story, the Brian song.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I knew about Chicago.
Do you think?
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
I always like these what if questions. I hope they don't bore you, Jim. Do you think that if for some reason you all get the win against Washington or San Francisco that next season, do you think there's a chance that you don't leave, that you retire as a Bear? Because I always fantasize about those things in my head that, like, if you'd have just gotten one more, like that, especially that second one against San Francisco, if you all have got to the Super Bowl that year, everybody's gone. It's like you're like the leader of the team. So it's just like you would have gotten so much more recognition. Do you think that you would have retired a Bear?
It would have been nice to do that. It was tough on my family. You know, I had young kids. They traveled everywhere I went. So for the 8 seasons I played after I left Chicago, they were with me. So, you know, they traveled around. They got to live on the East Coast, the West Coast, the Midwest. But it was tough on them always starting a new school, you know, especially when they're that little. But, you know, after a couple of days, they already got friends, and it's pretty cool. I thought that was good for them to, you know, to see part of the different parts of the country, and you have to grow up pretty quick like that. So that was the toughest thing. It was on them, but I would have loved to stay in Chicago the whole time. We came back here. I lived here for 28 years. So I was here until I retired and then some. So yeah, all my kids were born here, and I love the city, or I used to love the city. I don't know what's going on now with some of these politicians.
We passionately hate Bill Belichick on this show, and Tom Brady. So can you tell us the story? Because I love to hear you tell it, that Bill Belichick's a fucking liar.
Oh yeah. He's I was in Cleveland in '95. I go through training camp. Well, I think he was pissed off at me because I went to camp a week late, because I didn't really want to go to Cleveland anyway. And I told my attorney, I said, just tell him I'm out of the country. You can't get a hold of me, because I wanted to play in that golf tournament in Lake Tahoe.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, I've been to that tournament every year. I'm not going to miss it. And so I told the people at NBC, I said, even if I'm leading this golf tournament, do not put me on the television. Do not put my name anywhere. I'm supposed to be at work. And so I show up a week late, and Belichick says, out of the country, huh? And I said, oh, Lake Tahoe. I didn't know where that was. I thought it was in Canada or something. And so he might have been pissed then. So I go through all training camp. At the end of camp, he calls me in his office and he says, look, we're going to have to let you go because we got too many guys hurt. We got to make roster spots. And I said, that's cool. You know, it's my 14th year. I really didn't want to be there. And he goes, but no, I really want you here. And I said, look, what does that mean? He goes, I can't go into the season with just Vinny Testaverde as my quarterback and a rookie as his backup. I need some experience. I said, well, look, Bill, I said, if I'm going to be here, I got a lot of stuff to do. I got to find a house. You know, I got to find a hockey team for my sons. You know, I got to move my family, all this kind of stuff. And he's like, no, we're going to take care of you. He goes, we'll pay you while you're sitting out. He goes, it's probably only going to be a week or two. And so I called my attorney. I said, can I trust this guy? He just said he's going to pay me without playing. And he said, take him at his word. So I did. I go find a house, find a hockey team for my boys. First week goes by. I call in on Friday for my check. I get the runaround. So I'm thinking, okay, it's probably just first week jitters. So second week goes by. I call in on Friday. I get the runaround again. 7 goddamn weeks I'm sitting in Cleveland doing nothing. Working out at a Gold's Gym. Got to play a lot at Firestone. That was nice. But yeah, so they finally, because Belichick told me to my face, he says, Mr. Modell knows about this. And he goes, we're going to take care of you. I said, okay. So they finally signed me back. I think it was week 8. I dress the next 3 games. I get those checks. And it just so happens the 10th week we're playing the Green Bay Packers in Cleveland. And Andy Reid, who's now the head coach of Kansas City, he's on the Green Bay staff. And Andy was my left tackle in college. I've known his big ass for a long time. And we're playing catch on the 50-yard line during the pregame. I'm in my Cleveland stuff. He's in his Green Bay stuff. And he's going, hey, you should have came here this year. We got a good team. I said, I know. I hate it here. I hate that little prick over there. I pointed to Belichick. And I said, but don't be surprised if I'm available soon, right? And he says, what? I said, just check the waiver wire. So the very next day, I'm in the quarterback meeting watching the game film, and I get up to go to the restroom, and here comes the general manager who's been giving me the runaround all this time. And I corner him. I said, look, I need my money. I said, my wife just got in a wreck. I don't want to deal with insurance. I need my cash. And like a little smart ass, he says, well, maybe we'll pay you. Maybe we won't. And I lost it, man. I grabbed him by his throat and I started banging his head on the wall. You're going to pay me my money, And then I realized what I'm doing. So I looked around to see, this is before cameras are everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's no camera. So I whack his ass one more time. He slides down the wall. I walk into the training room, call my attorney. I said, get me cut right now. And he's like, what happened? I said, get me cut right now. So he goes, all right, where are you? I said, the training room, here's the number. So he calls me back within 2 minutes and says, okay, if you want to be released, I'll release you. I said, perfect. So now I walk back into the QB meeting and I just said, hey, boys, I'll see y'all later. And they're like, what? Where you going? I said, my ass is out of here. And the QB coach, I can't remember his name, says, oh, have you talked to Bill? I said, you can tell Bill to kiss my ass, that lying son of a bitch. I'm gone. And I left. The very next day, I was up in Green Bay. And we ended up losing the NFC Championship game that year. I stick around one more, and we won the Super Bowl. So I said, all right, I got a ring from the two oldest teams in the league. I can quit now.
Isn't it bullshit you didn't get to play in Super Bowl 31 because the Packers were up? Why didn't they let you come in and just kneel down or something?
No, Mike asked me, he goes, you want to go in? I said, no. I said, I'm not mopping up. I said, I played in this game when it meant something. I'm not going to mop up for your boy. I said, put Doug Peterson was on our team. I said, put Doug Peterson in. He'll, he's a rookie. He'll love that. I said, I'm not going to go, ruin my already poor rushing average by kneeling down.
They did offer that to you then.
Yeah. He asked if I wanted to go.
Okay, good. At least because I was like, man, the Packers should show him some respect. Let Jim go in and play a series, Did the Browns ever pay you your money?
No, never got it.
Fuckers.
Yeah, but who's the league going to believe? The guru, Belichick, or me? The guy that wore a headband.
How much of those stories about Belichick cheating and stuff do you believe? Do you think that
all of them?
All of them.
That's a soundbite. I love it.
All of them.
Do you think that his legacy should be tarnished because of the stuff that he's done to break rules?
He's a hell of a coach, but when you put that much time in and you do all that, and you do those extracurricular stuff that I'm sure that he's done. He might've been the one taking the air out of the ball. Who the hell knows? But nothing happens on his team without him knowing it. So
yeah, that's the thing. A couple more questions here from people in the chat room. Cliff Victoria wants to know about that game against the Vikings in '85 when you came out and threw 2 touchdown passes with the first 2 passes you threw. Can you recall just the feeling that you went through coming in? Because you told Ditka, I can play, I can start. And for some reason he didn't want you to play to start the game. Can you recall that for us?
Well, yeah, I'd been in traction for 2 days from the previous week. My neck and my shoulder was bothering me, and I had an infection. I had a turf burn that I got in week 1, and those things just last all season long. They rip every game, and so my calf was about the size of my thigh. So I had a bad infection in my leg, and Ditka had a rule. It only applied to me, though. It said if you don't practice, you don't play. Defensive guys never practice, but he'd say, hell with it. You play when I tell you. And so, the Monday night crew was there at practice. We practiced on Wednesday night or Wednesday afternoon. The Monday night crew was there. And Joe Willie Namath, who was my hero growing up, I said, I'm going to go sit and watch. He already told me I'm not playing, so what the hell should I go watch? I'm going to watch practice anyway. I don't need to be in the huddle. So I sat in the little stands and watched practice with those guys, and that pissed them off even more, I guess. And so when we get to Minnesota, we're having a team meeting that night, and I'm like, all right, he told me I'm not playing. I'm going to sit up here, keep my leg elevated, ice my leg. And one of the coaches came up and said, "Hey, Mike's pissed you're not at the meeting." I said, "Why do I have to be there? I'm not playing," he said. And so I go down, he chews my ass out. And so next day, you wake up. It's funny what adrenaline does to you on game day. I mean, you just start, you don't feel that much pain anyway. And then I had a shitload of muscle relaxers and painkillers as well. So I wasn't feeling a damn thing when I got in the game. But when I got to the stadium, I got dressed, went out on the field and started throwing the ball. And I'm like, damn, I was throwing it pretty good. Not feeling any pain. And I said, "Mike, I can play. If you need me, I can play." He said, "You're not playing. Get out of here." And so that's what happened. So the rest of the first half, I just was in his ear, bugging the hell out of him. Because we were both 2-0 at the time. That's a big swing if a division game. And we could never beat Minnesota up there until the prior year. Steve Fuller beat him up there. But, I just kept bugging him. And I saw our team was not the same team that had played the first 2 weeks. Nothing was happening. Defensively, we weren't playing very well. Offensively, we weren't doing anything. Steve wasn't playing bad. We just weren't doing anything. And I just kept saying, "Mike, you better put me in. We're going to lose this damn game." And to this day, I know the only reason he put me in is because he was sick and tired of me in his face.
Jim, Dan and I are both big fans of that Lakers TV show that's on HBO. And do you think that the 85 Bears and that era of the Bears would make a good TV show? Because I got to believe that with all the characters, all of the stories, you flashing your butt at this.
It would only last one season, though. We only won once.
That's true. But you know what?
It'd have to be like the 24-hour show, a whole season for one game.
But you know what? I think there's a lot of great story elements in what happened, the following years, kind of like a rise and fall story. Everybody expected you guys to win 2-3 Super Bowls. And what happened? Why did this team not fulfill that promise?
Well, I think we got tired. 86, we had the best, we had a hell of a chance in 86. We were 14-2.
Right.
A lot of people forget. I said, no, the next 3 years we had home field advantage throughout the playoffs, the next 3 years. And we didn't take advantage of that. And I think we got tired. We weren't the same team after 86 either. We lost Wilbur, Willie, I don't know who else, but we weren't the same dominating team that we were in 85 and 86, especially in 87 and 88. But we did have home field advantage. And we, like I said, we got there and just didn't play well at home. It's not like the other sports that have a 7-game series.
Terrible. Don't you agree?
What's that?
He could have re-signed Wilbur. That would have helped a lot of things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But, that's the way it goes. They didn't want to pay anybody. Do you
watch any of the old games anymore? Like, are you bored from watching the old stuff too? Like, you ever show your kids or?
My son does most of my social media, and people send him stuff all the time. He likes to see that stuff because he wasn't even born yet. He wasn't born till 91, so he got to experience a little bit of with the Packers, but he doesn't remember much other than that. And I only had my two oldest were only 1.5 or 2 and 1 at the time, so they don't really remember a whole lot.
I think as a Bears fan, the highlight of all of that was probably winning the championship game against the Rams at Soldier Field, even more so than the Super Bowl, because just at home and the crowd loving it. And
that's why you play for home field advantage, that type of advantage. And we just, the rest of the time, we just laid an egg.
What's the most disappointing aspect of your career that you wish, man, I wish I could have that moment back?
Probably 86. I wish I could have got a proper diagnosis. I could have got surgery, the week number 2. And then, I could at least started the next season easily. But, I waited. I went through all that bullshit. And then, I'm lucky to come back when I did. They still put me on IR at the beginning of 87. I missed the first 7 games. they just felt that it wasn't quite as strong as it should have been. And it wasn't. I mean, hell, when I came back, it was like a noodle. I couldn't throw anything. But, you know, it gradually got stronger. By the time I retired, hell, I was throwing as good as I ever throw. You know, have ever thrown the ball. But, you know, I hadn't been hitting a couple of years either. That helps.
You know,
In that Washington playoff game, the Doug Williams game, you had a pulled hamstring too, right? Can you recall that?
I don't recall that.
That 14-0 game that you all were winning and then lost.
Yeah, all I remember is my left shoulder still hurts to this day because of that damn hit.
Yeah, if there was ever a slap, like me and Aldo were talking about this the other day, a snapshot of how much the team loved you when you're down there. I don't even know if you remember, but your lineman, specifically Hilgenberg, drops to his knees to look you in your eyes and pick you up there and, you know, celebrate. I mean, those guys loved you. I mean, I don't know if
they were great. They were great. They don't get the credit that they deserve. You know, Jimbo finally got in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in my opinion, Keith Van Horn should be in there. Jay Hilgenberg should be in there, and even Mark Bortz. Mark Bortz, he was a defensive lineman when they drafted him, and he turned into one hell of an offensive guard. You know, he had that defensive guy mentality, and that's the kind of stuff you need. But we led the league in rushing 4 years in a row, which had never been done, and it's never been done since. And that's a credit to those guys because everybody knew we're going to run the damn thing, and we still ran it. I mean, that's good offensive line play.
Yeah.
Have you seen Mongo lately?
I'm going to see him Thursday. Keith Van Horn and I actually are going to go up. Keith's going to pick me up after my first rehab session. We're going to go spend a couple hours, and I got to get back for session number 2.
That's a guy that needs to be in the Hall of Fame too, not just because of his current status, his statistics back, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he's got more sacks than any interior lineman, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Or close to it.
And I got
the guy looks so, I mean, like I could cry just seeing him, you know?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, that's a bad disease.
Yeah, and I just want to say, you know, there's tons of comments in our chat room, and a lot of people are asking about Mongo and so forth. So if on our behalf, if you could please give Steve our best wishes and how much he means to Chicago Bears fans and Chicago fans, tell him that, you know, that we're all pulling for him and praying, and it's just awful to see him in that state. But he's a fighter, and every day he's with us is a blessing.
No doubt about it, man. One of my best teammates ever. He was just a hard-nosed guy, man. Played the game tough. That's the way you're supposed to be.
You know,
Wilbur's hurt too, right? Because I read that Wilbur won't even come out in public.
Really?
He's ashamed of having to limp, and I read that he said he wished he had never played and all kinds of stuff.
Well, a lot of guys are hurting. I know Horn's in a bad way as well. He's, you know, his neck and back, and you know, linemen, they don't get a lot of coverage, but they're the guys that are suffer the most when they're done.
Yeah, sad. You know, of all the, like, you did the Super Bowl Shuffle, you did all these great posters and stuff. Do you have a favorite promotional thing that you did? Was the Super Bowl Shuffle the most exciting thing? Somebody in the chat room said that you filmed that right after the loss to Miami in '85. But any of those memorabilia things that you kind of hold special to your heart?
Well, actually, the posters that I got to do with the Kostakos brothers, those were a lot of fun. The Mad Mac one, the Grid Warrior.
Oh yeah. When
I was with that little bear cub, and then I did the Chicago Vice and the Art of Rebellion, or so. I did 4 or 5 of those posters. That was a good time, and they're coming back. Actually, I'm doing this documentary, and when that comes out, they're going to re-release the posters too, I guess. So hopefully they'll get a little play.
Excellent. What is the schedule on that documentary? Because I had read about that. Do you know when the release date is?
No, I actually talked to CJ, the producer, or texted him last week. He still has a couple more people to interview.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of my military buddies. I think the second half of that, I've seen the first half of it. It's mostly just, from the time I was a little kid up to the Super Bowl. And I think that the rest of it's going to be what happened after football. So I do a lot of stuff with our military. So I told him make sure he talks to a couple of these guys that I see a lot.
Got to ask you about Aaron Rodgers. A lot of people in the chat room are talking about, the "I own you" thing that he said to the Chicago Bears. Dan and I hate Aaron Rodgers. What are your thoughts about Aaron Rodgers and that quirky guy?
I don't really know Aaron. I've met him. He's a hell of a football player.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know him. I don't know him personally, really. So I don't really know what's going on with him in the Packers. So who knows if he'll come back there.
Yeah, I think he's coming back. He signed a big fat contract, but it was announced today that he's not, despite the fact he signed this big contract, he's not going to the voluntary workouts, which I thought was kind of weird. But, hey, that's his decision, not mine.
Yeah, well, that's why they say they're voluntary. So I don't think he really needs to be throwing the ball in the Don Hudson Center in the wintertime. So he throws it pretty well anyway.
Yeah.
The Packers, that's an example of why, as a Bears fan, why I loved you so much is because when the Bears played Green Bay, then we could win. I don't know if you remember, but
I only lost to him once, I think, in the 7 years. So.
Do you remember the game to close the year? You got Bart Starr fired because the Packers were going to make the playoffs if they just beat the lowly Bears. It was really cold. It was like 2 degrees at Soldier Field. Last game of the season, and you threw a pass to Emery Moorhead to set up the field goal to knock Green Bay out in 83.
I don't remember that, but sorry about that, Bart.
Bart Starr was their coach, and he got fired after you led the comeback.
That's too bad because then they got Forrest Gregg, yeah.
Somebody just asked about what your feeling is about, this is from Jeremy. He asked, what are your feelings about the rule changes in NFL to protect quarterbacks? Do you agree with them, or do you think that the game should be played the way it was back in your era?
Well, I think, a late hit's a late hit. Well, late nowadays is just if you get touched, that's a late hit, I guess. But back then, they could take 2 or 3 steps and still whack you in the head. And, they could hit you low. They could hit you high. Nowadays, they can't even go low. If a guy falls down and grabs you by the leg, he's going to get a flag. Because you can't hit him below the knee, I guess. I don't understand some of it. It'd be nice to be able to step into every throw knowing you're not going to get drilled in the knees.
Mm. Dan and I talked about this. If you were playing in this era, you probably would, and under the right system that would allow you to be who you are as a quarterback, you would throw for 5,000 yards every fucking season. I mean, and that's not hyperbole. That's not wishful thinking. It's just anyone that knows the game knows that you would have tore this league apart, in a league that protects quarterbacks the way they do, in a league that allows wide receivers to go untouched after 5 yards, in a league that has really just transformed itself into a quarterback league. And I don't have to tell you how much money you'd be making. You'd be making $40 million a year right now. So
that'd be nice. The Bears wouldn't pay me one, so they traded me.
Oh man, that sucks. Who was the guy?
Let me ask you one more question. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Speaking of cheap shots and injuries, was that a cheap shot do you remember the hit in New England in 88? It was your last start as a Bear in the regular season. I always thought that looked like a dirty hit on you.
The one I hurt my knee on.
Stadium. Do you remember that one?
I think I hurt my knee on that one.
I thought that it looked like they took some liberties with you on that play, though. I
thought so too, but I'd have to watch it again because I thought somebody grabbed my leg and yanked on it when he was getting up out of the pile. But he actually just drilled the hell out of my knee, and I don't know what I tore, but yeah, it wasn't too good after that.
Yeah, and then Flutie was playing for New England that day too, so it was even worse.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, you've been very generous with your time here and taking us down memory lane. And I'll tell you, man, we would love to see more of you on shows and to talk. You've got a great personality. I love the fact that you say, fuck the establishment. We need more guys like you to tell it like it is. And everything is so washed down nowadays. And
you got to be a yes man now.
Oh my gosh, it's unbelievable.
I wouldn't do well in today's society with this social media bullshit and everything else.
Who would you like to say fuck you to right now? Go ahead and say fuck you.
Charles Martin.
Go ahead.
No, he's rest in peace. He's long gone.
Yeah. Go ahead. Say fuck you to somebody.
I'm good. I mean, I've been out of this league for 26 years now. So, yeah, I don't have any other than them flat out denying me in that lawsuit.
Yeah.
About the concussion deal. They shouldn't have even called it the concussion lawsuit. It had nothing to do with concussions, because unless you got ALS like Steve has, or dementia, Parkinson's, I think there was one or two other things. You have to have that. And they told me I had early dementia 10 years ago. So I don't know if I've made a miraculous recovery, or the people that tested me don't know what the hell they're doing either.
Now, a lot of people have been asking in the chat room about how are you feeling, and like Laz, for instance, he's interested in the progress that you've made with the headaches and the neck issues that you've had. How are you feeling?
It's about time to go back to New York. It's probably been about 4 months. I usually go every 3 to 4 months when I start having headaches, and I start forgetting a lot of shit. Then I know it's time to go. So at least I know what's going on with me. A lot of these guys that are taking their lives, they don't know. I mean, Dave Dorson, good example. I was with Dave probably a month or two before all that happened, and I would have never guessed that was going on. I couldn't believe when he did it. I said, how could you do that to yourself? But then I was having the same thoughts that he was having, and my head hurt so bad. I was laying in a dark room for weeks at a time, because if I didn't have a function, I didn't come out of my room. And luckily, these guys found me. These guys in New York said, hey, come here. We think we know what's going on. It's definitely not a cure-all, but at least I can function when I'm properly aligned. And so my only other option is to drill a hole in my brain and run a shunt down, a tube down from my brain to my stomach. And I'm not going to deal with that. So I can deal with once I start having headaches, that's when I call them up, say, Doc, when can I meet you in Albany? Boom, fly in, fly out, and I'm good for the next 3 months.
Well, I got to tell you, people in the chat room are telling me to tell you something that I was going to tell you anyway. Thank you. Thank you for giving us so much entertainment as a Chicago Bear. Thank you for what you did on the field, and being the type of guy that you were. You stood up for a generation of people who wanted to say fuck you to the people who run things, because you guys have fucked this up so royally. I'm here. I'm going to do it my way. And if you don't like it, fuck you. And by the way, there's a guy who's a Detroit Lions fan. I want you to say fuck the Detroit Lions. Because
they got enough problems, man.
Yeah, they do.
At least Stafford got out there and he wins the Super Bowl. So
can you believe that? I mean, can you effing believe that?
Well, that kid's a good player. I mean,
he really is.
He was stuck on a bad team. It's just unfortunate.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you're that good. You get drafted by teams that are shitty.
Dan, you got any final questions for?
I just want to tell them, man. See, I grew up in West Virginia, so
I got a good buddy of mine in West Virginia, Buckhannon, West Virginia.
Yeah, that's pretty close for to here, actually, to where I am. But I was just gonna say it was the reason I became a Bears fan, because of your spots and just you're in Taco Bell and the scooters and all that shit. And all that as a kid, I didn't know. I was like, who's that guy? That's my guy right there, Jim McMahon. That's Jim McMahon. Well, who's he play for? He plays for. Okay, well, I'm a Bears fan too. So I've been in misery for the last 35 years. Because of you, sir. I'm joking. But I became a Bears fan because of you. And they've sucked a long time since you. But the point is I stuck with them, and it was because of you. So I thank you for all my childhood memories, man.
I gave it all I had.
I certainly appreciate you.
You sure
thank you.
You showed it on the field, man. Sometimes I gotta tell you, Jim, sometimes I would get worried that you were headbutting with Keith Van Horn and some of these guys. I'm saying to myself, what's he doing? He's gonna hurt himself. It's bad enough that he's got these 300-pound defenders coming at him, and then he's over here scoring touchdowns and headbutting with his teammates. Does that ever hurt?
No. One time, my roommate Kurt Becker and I said, I told him, I said, we score tomorrow, I'm going to knock you out. And so he was ready for me, and he hit me as hard as probably I've ever been hit in the pros after we scored. So yeah, that was a bad move on my part. But I'd hit him with my forehead. Try to hit him with my forehead. You don't want to hit him with the top of your head. That's when you cause the neck problems.
For sure, man. You're the best, Jim McMahon. We love you, and please give Mongo our love when you see him later this week. And you got a home here at the bar room anytime you want to come on and talk, yell at politicians, yell at whoever the hell you want. This is the place to do it, okay?
All right, guys. Appreciate you having me.
All right. Take care, brother.
All right. We'll see you.
Dan Aguirre, what do you think, man?
I hope I didn't let anybody down, with the interview.
I don't think you did. I thought you.
I never really got into a proper fluidity with him, but again, I can't even see where I'm working, but I'm still a little starstruck even just hearing his voice.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I performed as well as I could have, is what I'm saying, but it was great to have the opportunity to talk with him, though.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say you did great. If people in the chat room are applauding you, the only guy that is complaining is Don Burr. He's from Detroit. He wants to know why we're still talking about the '85 Bears. And my reply to him was 1957 is when the Lions last won the championship. Was there
Bobby Lane?
Yeah, were there TVs in 1957? I don't know. But
Eisenhower was president last time they won a fucking playoff. Well, no, that's right. Eric Kramer won the one playoff game. Let's not forget that.
Oh, that's right. Our buddy Eric Kramer. We're going to have him back pretty soon. Who else is now on your list of guys? We've checked off Eric Kramer, but we'll have him back. We checked off Jim McMahon. We'd love to have him back. Who else now do you want to interview? The coach will be very, very difficult because
how about Wani then? We could get Wani.
Oh, that's the guy. That's the guy. Wani. Now, a lot of people are wondering why Wani. Tell people why you want to talk to Wani.
For one, the Bears played hard for Dave Wanstead. And early on, we won a playoff game on the road in the Metrodome in the second round against Minnesota. The next year, Kramer has the great year. It's fun. It's fun watching the teams. They every game they lose is just barely by a couple, except for one blowout. Then the next year, Kramer breaks his neck and it goes down from there because they trade for Rick Meyer. I mean, so that's a lot of things you could talk about. Like, what would have happened if Eric didn't break his neck and you weren't saddled with Rick Meyer? What if Rick Meyer actually would have come over and fucking played well? Like, you were this close, you're a couple of games from the Super Bowl in '94. But again, amongst all that losing, they were still playing hard.
Mm-hmm.
There was never any of these moments that Matt Nagy had, like where it looked like the team just didn't give a shit about him and took the first half off. Mm. You go back and watch those Wani games, man. Even if they didn't have talent, the Bears played tough.
I love that. I'll never forget. I was in a bar watching the game with a buddy of mine, and the Bears are losing, and he's fuck Wani this, fuck Wani that. And I got really pissed off at him, and I said, you know what? This team is fucking playing hard for him. Have you ever maybe considered the fact that the talent isn't there, or anything other than it's not Wani's fault? Because maybe he made some strategic mistakes with the schemes and stuff like that, but his players played hard for him, man. There's no fucking doubt about him. I would love to have Wanstead on. And by the way, tons of people in the chat room saying you did a great job. You have such tremendous recall on stuff. So you're getting lots of applause there. And then also suggestions as to who we should get on. Bear Truth 9 says we need to get Mike Brown on. That would be
I'd love Mike Brown.
Fucking awesome.
Mike Brown, when he cried, when he got hurt in week 1 in San Diego in 2007, and he cried in the post game because he was out for the year and he knew it. It wasn't official yet, but he knew it. When Mike Brown cried, I cried.
Yeah. Do you remember who the Bears drafted in that draft class with Mike Brown?
Brian Urlacher.
Really? Was it Brian Urlacher?
Urlacher was first and Mike Brown was second, right?
Oh, you're right. You're right. Oh,
yeah.
I had the wrong answer in my mind. I won't even say who it was because it was way off. Nomad says try to get Richard Dent.
I love Dent. How about Wilbur Marshall, man? Like Jim didn't seem to know, and I hated putting him on the spot on things, but Wilbur's been suffering, and he said that he put on weight, because he can't exercise, and he's embarrassed of his appearance, and that he walks with a limp, and he's a shell of who he used to be. So he won't make any appearances like for the 85 Bears or any of that kind of stuff.
That's too bad.
Yeah, and he was asked about, if you had to do it all over, they asked McMahon that, they've asked Mongo that, and they both say, yes, I would play all over again if I knew. But when Wilbur was asked that, he said no. And he's got 2 Super Bowl rings, and he said no, it wasn't worth it. If he'd have known how he was going to feel now, he would not have played ever.
Oh,
so that'd be a great person to talk with.
Yeah, it'd be a sad interview, but yeah, I'd love to get him on. I'll see what I can do. Don Burr says, interview a current champ. LOL. Oh, there isn't none. Well, Don, we could interview Matt Stafford, although he's no longer a Lion. First year out of Detroit, and he wins the Super Bowl. That's gotta hurt.
I don't understand how the Lions fan can talk smack to us. I just don't get it. I mean, no, I'm not trying to be funny. Like I said, there are cousins in losing, and it's at least the Bears can say Walter Payton just didn't say, fuck it, I've had enough losing with this team, I quit, like Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson both did in their primes.
Yeah,
they both just quit because they hated being in Detroit.
Yeah. All right, here's a controversial one for you. What if we landed Brian Urlacher? Because I would be respectful and stuff, but I wouldn't. I'm not his fanboy at all. Yeah.
So I would be respectful and but I probably should recuse myself. That should be a Mike North interview or something.
No, I want you to interview Urlacher and ask him about these allegations.
No, man, they're sensitive. The woman accused him of child abuse and stuff, and it's just like she said he was painting their toes, the boys' kids with girls' toenail polish, and purposely trying to make him gay.
I don't believe that.
Well, that's what the baby mama said. I don't know. I mean, like I said, you can't take the accusations as being true. I get that.
Sure. You
got to give him his day in court, so to speak. And obviously that was so long ago, it probably wasn't true because he didn't go to jail for it, or was it? I don't know. It's so creepy to me, just hearing that he was putting pink diapers on the boys and trying to get him to say things like, oh, that's pretty, because he thought it was sadistically funny to fuck with his sexuality. That was what she was claiming. And I thought, God, what kind of a human being would do that to a child?
Yeah.
So I don't want to talk to him.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he hasn't, he didn't do that. But if we do get him,
Mike North can talk to him.
John Buffon. John
Buffon, yeah, then he can talk about Doug.
By the way, tomorrow is John Buffon's birthday, and we will announce that he is coming back for his 6th year here at the bar room. So
happy birthday, Mr. Buffon.
Yes.
He has great energy on air. He does. I'm not lying.
Gosh.
I mean, I'm not saying that just to be nice. Buffon is good on air. He certainly is.
You still think that he doesn't like you?
Yeah. That won't take away from his presentation, though. He's solid, man.
He likes you, man. I don't know what you.
He's solid. He's super solid. I liked the show with you and him and Gaines. I thought it was good.
Yeah.
I still think you should lead, though. I told you that off air. I think it'd be better if you were leading and throwing it to John and throwing it to Gaines back and forth. I thought that would be a better format. But I mean, we're talking inside shit on air, so
that's all right. A couple of other names have come up. Johnny Knox would be a great get.
Yeah, to me, the silver goose now would be Cutler.
You want to talk to Jay, huh?
I don't think he would, but I mean, he talks to Waddle and Sylvie every now and again, but I just can't imagine. He's got stuff to plug.
Yeah, he's gone on some podcasts.
But I don't know if, we're like, he's used to being on, I don't know if we're important enough, so I'm saying but maybe I loved Cutler. So I know so many people didn't. And like I said to McMahon, when he was down, man, his linemen got on their knees and picked him up. I don't know if they'd have done that for Jay. Because that, no one seemed to be, other than Marshall at times, effusive with praise for him. But I just think he's the great, miss with the organization, like what could have been. Like the guy had the talent to win it all with us, and we blew it, man.
Stephen Mee says Urlacher is a douchebag. Yeah, a lot of people feel that way about Mr. Brian Urlacher.
I just can't believe he's in the Hall of Fame on his first ballot.
Yeah,
and Devin Hester didn't get in.
And I don't want to, Dan Pompei is a Hall of Fame writer, but I think it was because Dan has so much admiration for Urlacher's play that he's in. He made a very compelling argument. Nobody expected Urlacher to be a first ballot. Not in the same year Ray Lewis was going in, because we knew that Ray Lewis was the better linebacker of the two.
Sure. Although Ray allegedly killed some people, but that's I say allegedly.
Yes, you did.
The white suit, Ray, where's it at?
that is
the bloody suit.
That is, I have been in a little bit of a funk lately regarding all of the stuff that people say on social media. Like, for instance, did you see any of that video with Cam Newton, denigrating women, at least in the clip that was shared on social media? Did you see that at all?
I haven't seen it. Is it new?
Yeah, it was. Apparently he was on a radio show or a podcast 2 days ago. And so yesterday the video came out and he was saying, what's the perfect woman? And I'm paraphrasing here, so I apologize if I get anything wrong. But basically he was saying, a woman has to know when to be quiet and let the man lead. And and so I didn't listen to the entire interview, so I felt it was unfair for me to blast him for that kind of
it certainly doesn't sound good.
Exactly. And so a lot of people, for instance, there's somebody, I'm forgetting who it was. Somebody who is Richard Hamilton, the former NBA star.
Actor?
No, I think his name is Richard Hamilton. Who he does an ESPN basketball show. He goes, I listened to the entire interview. I don't think people should be talking ill of Cam Newton, and I'm glad that I didn't post anything, because again, I didn't hear the whole thing, but whoever put that clip out there, if it was taken out of context, then shame on them. So the reason I was feeling in such a funk, it's just social media is starting to annoy me, because so many people are so quick to react to things. And I've learned over the last couple of years is somebody says something, a lot of times I just want to type out, fuck you. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't do it anymore. I either ignore it or I go do some research on the topic. And then sometimes I'll get information to debate somebody, but then I'll say, why the hell should I debate this person? They said something without doing the proper research before they posted their comment on social media. Why should I engage with that person?
Yeah, that's a waste of time. Like, usually it's politics for me. If anybody listens to the show, they know that I'm a left winger. So if I post something that is in my wheelhouse politically, I'm not posting it as a fuck you to somebody that's following me that's a right winger.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not posting it in a confrontational, caustic kind of way. But there are a lot of people that take it that way and want to fucking argue and shit as soon as I post something.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if I follow them back, then they'll send me, direct messages wanting to bitch or something about politics. And I'm just not going to waste my time with it. It's not that I'm above them or better than them, but I'm too busy to sit around arguing about politics. And I don't post shit like that on Facebook because where I live, as you know, is a Republican state. So I don't want to alienate people on Facebook because so many of them I know in real life that are Republicans.
Right.
So I use Twitter because so many people on Twitter I don't know, and still people get offended by it. So.
Yeah, there was a guy who he actually hasn't been. I haven't seen him in the chat for maybe a year, but he posted a political statement on a Mike North thread and called the present administration a clown show, and that he would vote for Trump in a moment. And I'm thinking to myself, should I reply to that? And I said to myself, you know what? I'm not going to go there. I won't even go into it here. I just feel like some people, And then he started the comment by saying, I don't follow politics, but the president administration is a clown show. And I'm like, you don't follow politics, then why should I take your comment seriously? In any case, enough about that.
Right.
Stephen Me says, Dan Aguirre's a left winger. LOL. West Virginia left wing seems like a really right wing. Yeah, I mean, that's been one of the interesting parts of Dan Aguirre's life is he lives in a red state, and he's pretty blue guy.
Yeah, I don't. People that know me know that, but like, in full disclosure, I voted for Biden, but I wouldn't put a Biden sign in my yard or on my vehicle because someone would damage my vehicle, flatten my tires, or egg my house. Who knows? Set it on fire. Yeah, like these Trump people are passionate about him, and not every Trump person is. Like to the point where they would do damage. I don't want to, besmirch or broad brush paint someone, but there are a lot of people that are so passionate on his side. If they saw like a Biden sticker or something, they would do damage to your vehicle. And so, I mean, you got to kind of be a Democrat in the closet. Being a Democrat in West Virginia now is like being a gay man in the 80s. You had to be in the closet because people would say you had AIDS and you were spreading AIDS and all this, these terrible things that people were saying about gay people back in those days. And you almost had to be in the closet socially. And it's maybe that's too harsh of a comparison, but because that's people's lives, but you get the point. You don't want confrontation,
A few more names that have come as suggestions for guests. Thomas Jones, we had him on 100 Proof once, and the story that he shared about the Super Bowl and the fact that he was taken out of the game right after a big run and they were platooning guys.
He was on Bears Hour Live too.
He was on Bears Hour Live and I think on one other show a third time, but maybe I'm wrong. In any case, I've actually reached out to him, and so I'm hoping that he will respond because I'd love to talk to him again.
Yeah, I'd love to talk to him too. He's interacted with me on Twitter a few times.
Oh, cool.
Because his high school here is local for me.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, the cool thing is, again, they were the Powell Valley Vikings, and they consolidated with another school and became the Bears because of Thomas. So they're the Union Bears now.
Stephen Me says, you'd never get Thomas Jones. He's Holly weird now. No, I disagree, Stephen. When we had him on, he had just released a film, the one where he plays a MMA fighter. I think it's an MMA fighter. And he was on the Marvel series. So I think if anything, he wants to come on and promote, his projects and stuff. So, but anyways, we'll see.
How about Anthony Thomas?
Anthony, the A-Train. Oh man. Put him at the top of the list.
Or Brad Muster or Neil Anderson.
Neil Anderson has come up. Brad Muster has not come up, but isn't he like a successful businessman now, Brad Muster?
I don't know anything about him. It's weird. The year he left, he went to New Orleans as a free agent, and then we signed Ironhead Hayward as a free agent from New Orleans, but those were coincidental moves. On paper, it would look like a trade.
Jerry Azuma, what do you think about that?
Zoom was good on TV on that show, man. The post game on CSN now, it was NBC Sports or no Comcast back then. Yeah, Comcast Sports Chicago. He was solid on there.
Yeah. Here's one that I would love to get, and he was on the Mike North Advantage show. I could probably ask Mike. Ed O'Bradovich.
Ed, if he doesn't like you'd be like Greg. He might yell at us.
I'm ready, man. I'm ready to get yelled at.
The only thing is we could get Ed yelling about Matt Nagy. That would be great.
Ed O'Bradovich. Yeah, he is awesome. Do I have that soundbite? Oh, you God, morons. So I don't have it, Andy. Anyway, I caught him towards the tail end of his career in the 60s. So I didn't get to see him play at his best, like when the 1963 NFL Bears championship. But, just like you, Dan, I'm a big fan of NFL films. And there's this one soundbite. I wish I had it handy so I could play right now. But, he's got this great deep voice, Ed O'Bradovich. And in this NFL Films thing, he starts talking about what it was like playing in that era, the 50s and 60s. And he says something like, God damn it, we were men back then. We were men. And I just immediately I fell in love with the guy. I said, okay, this is a bear. And I went back and I tried to find as many old clips and stuff of him as I could. And I'm just a big Ed O'Bradovich fan, and I love his WGN post-game show.
I like him and Hampton.
Yeah. Boy, wouldn't it be great if we could get both of them on? That would be great, because that was one of the suggestions in the chat room to get them both on.
Did you hear what Jim said and asked him, like, why would Dan? He's like, who gives a shit or whatever. Like, he just doesn't care when people don't like him or whatever. He just does not care.
Yep.
I wish I was the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, you should be that. You know what? Well, I better not.
Jay Cutler was the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Don't care. Don't fucking care. You don't like me? Fucking blow me, man.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine who told me that he was diagnosed with a disorder where he wants to make people happy all the time, and if they're not happy, then he gets depressed and he gets anxious and stuff like that. You might have that, Dan.
I don't want to. It almost sounds like I'm giving myself praise if I say that, but I mean,
it's not. It's actually,
that seems like it's possible, because I do hate it if someone's upset with me or something,
mm-hmm.
especially if I feel like it's a misunderstanding. Like it'll ruin my week, if I feel like I'm pissing people off, I don't like to be caustic with anybody. I don't want to argue with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because I won't or can't, or I'm afraid. It's just, that's not my natural disposition.
Mm-hmm. Well, we know that you can.
Fuck you. I was so mad at that guy because, again, I feel like it's marginalizing me just because I'm white to say that I can't empathize with other minorities and stuff, man. But I don't want to talk about that.
No,
a lot of the shows that we've been watching have been doing that too. I was thinking, like, you had the thing with Bomani Jones, which I don't really want to talk about. The Kareem segment in the week before, like, I don't want to play in front of white people.
Mm-hmm.
And then the movie we watched that you sent me so kindly, there were so many of the anti-gringo, stuff in that, which, again, I don't take personally,
mm-hmm.
because for a lot of, I can understand the viewpoint from a lot of instances, but I hate that in so many ways that people will just group me in with everybody, like, whether it be the Nazis or all these atrocities that white people have committed that I have nothing to do with. And it's like, I'm on that team, and I hate that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the worst feeling in the world. The people just assume because you're white, you're this or you're that or whatever. And usually it's wrong, whatever they assume.
Absolutely. I want to talk about that movie that I sent you. It's called Perdita Durango. It also has.
I'm glad you said it. I didn't know how to say it.
It also has another title. It was released in the United States under the name Dance with the Devil. It's a 1997 action crime horror film directed by some guy I've never heard of before, Alex de Iglesia. How can you describe the plot? Because you saw it much more recently than I did. I saw it when it was first released. You saw it today. I saw it when it was released back in the 90s, late 90s. Tell people about it.
I've never heard of it. That's the thing. It's like a hidden gem. Like, it's got James Gandolfini. If you're a Sopranos fan or a fan of True Romance, he had such a great character in that too.
Mm-hmm.
And then I love Javier Bardem, but pardon me, he plays in a lot of movies that I don't like, but I do like him.
Mm-hmm.
So I naturally like him. And Rosie Perez, since White Man Can't Jump, man, come on.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a good cast, and essentially they meet early on in the film, and they're both attracted to each other, being Rosie and Javier, because they don't give a fuck and don't care to break the law or take drugs or steal or whatever. But you start seeing through flashbacks, like he owes somebody money. He's recently robbed a bank.
Mm-hmm.
And then he turns on his partner, and then they just laugh and like, let's get some hostages. Let's get some white hostages. And then they both basically rape them. Like, she starts to fuck the boy, he fucks the girl. And along the way, there's all these plots twists, because he's talked in stories about how close he is with his cousin.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, a half hour in, you meet his cousin. His cousin wants him in on a drug deal, or actually a deal for fetuses.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to take fetuses and somehow use that to turn that into cream to help rich people, with their wrinkles or something. It's not as far-fetched as I make it sound. And they actually say that the Nazis had an atrocity with something similar. So, God, I'm rambling, but it does kind of meander all over the place, but it's, and James Gandolfini's the policeman. He's the DEA agent trying to catch them.
Mm-hmm.
And along the way, they're carrying the two white people as hostages. I don't know. Jump in, man. I feel like I'm.
No,
I'm
I
not doing
actually
well
have the trailer playing as you're describing it, and it's the R-rated trailer. I just saw some woman's breasts, and Rosie Perez. I don't even want to describe the plot because it is all over the place, and it's the type of movie that I don't think it's a movie that you watch, to see the plot. You watch it because it's so fucking outrageous, because the imagery, because the occult aspects of it, because Javier Bardem is such a fucking badass, because James Gandolfini is so fucking funny in this movie. He gets run over by a car repeatedly over and over again. It's just a strange fucking movie, and I fucking love it. It is great.
I really appreciate you sending it to me, and I had never heard of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like nobody has ever heard of it. It's again called Dance with the Devil, or its original title is Perdita Durango. And guess what? As I was looking for the trailer, the entire movie is available on YouTube. Now, I don't know if it's free. Let's see. It looks like it is. If you go to Hollywood, never mind. It's dubbed in Hindu.
Oh God.
So maybe you don't want to watch it, the Hindu version of it, but look for it if you're into very, very strange, offbeat. Turner Classic Movies has a thing on Saturday nights, I believe, like at 2 a.m. Where they play all of these weird like drive-in movies, B movies, cult movies, and so forth. This movie definitely deserves to be in that category. If you're into that kind of weird shit, give it a shot. Somebody in chat room said that the cult classic is Nomad said this. It's JoJo Dancer featuring Richard Pryor.
Oh yeah, I've seen JoJo Dancer.
Yeah, I mean that basically is the story of his life. It's partly autobiographical. He grew up in a brothel. Really, Richard Pryor really did. And by the way, the Richard Pryor is depicted in this
the Lakers series that was shitty. I thought he sucked. Did you like him? I thought the guy playing Richard Pryor in the show sucked.
He's awful. I can't believe they cast that guy as him.
Yeah, man, his impression was like Eddie Murphy, like on Raw, did a perfect impression. Mm-hmm. I get you're not going to get Eddie Murphy, but come on, man. Like they managed to get a guy that looks like Magic Johnson and a guy that looks like Michael Cooper. Mm-hmm. You can't find somebody that sounds like Richard Pryor a little bit, or can't make himself sound like Richard Pryor.
Yeah, and he
was horrible.
And he says nothing funny at all, nothing remotely funny. You would think,
but, and Richard Pryor wasn't racist. Like they portray him as he's like everything he says on there's anti-white. Dude was married to multiple white women and allegedly was sucking Marlon Brando's dick. That's coming from his ex-wife. So I don't think he was anti-white if he's sleeping with white men and white women.
Yeah, that's weird. Stephen Me asked about the Santucci man. Why isn't he here? And as Dan said earlier, he's not feeling well. Tooch sent us a tweet a couple of hours before showtime saying he's got a bad case of diverticulitis.
I didn't know what that was, but it sounded bad. And then when he depicted it, it sounded even worse.
He says, it's like having a knife in the lower left abdomen. I can't stand up straight. He's hunched over like an old man. God bless you, John. Get to the hospital, man. I know he can sometimes be reluctant about going to the hospital and stuff, but you really should go if you're in that kind of pain where you're hunched over. Hopefully you're back with us next week, Tooch, and I'll give you a call tomorrow hopefully you're listening in and we've provided some laughs. Cliff Victoria says, got to see that prior Brando. He's got to get that prior Brando image out of his head now. That the whole
that was from Richard Pryor's ex-wife. I'm not making that up, but you've heard about that too, right?
Oh yeah, you were the one that told me about it. I looked into it. I said, yeah, this shit is true.
Yeah, like Showtime's got a good documentary called something like Listen, Marlon, Listen.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't watched it, you should see it. This guy did a bunch of interviews with Marlon back in the day, and I guess he just had them. So they go through them years later and make it into a coherent, like almost, you can tell it's like this guy's talked to him for like 24 hours or something,
Mm-hmm.
and they've cut it down to like 2 hours. And Marlon says on there things like, he's like, yeah, of course I've sucked dick. He's like, what's the big deal? I don't give a shit. I consider myself straight because I like women. But who gives a fuck? I've done it. So what? Like he doesn't mention Richard specifically, right. I don't think. But,
right.
But yeah, I mean, I that's, to me, it was cool that he could just be like, fuck you. I don't care what you think.
Yeah, that is cool. But I got to say, these guys in that era did drugs so much, that they probably engaged in behavior that was outside what they would, what they would do if they were sober. And I'm not casting aspersions towards homosexual behavior, but I gotta believe that if Richard Pryor is engaging in homosexual sex, it's probably because he was fucked up on crack or something. I don't know. Because he was known as quite the woman's man. I don't know. I'm talking out of my ass here. I don't know, anything about it, but it is weird to me that that the whole Richard Pryor Marlon Brando thing, that is just very strange.
Hey, I gotta get ready to go, but I'll tell you real quickly. I was reading Robbie Krieger's book. He's the guitar player from The Doors.
Yeah.
I just finished it up. One of the funny things he said in there, and I assume it's true. I mean, he said that in like 67, 68, Jim Morrison caught syphilis.
Oh, wow.
And he said that Jim was like fascinated by it and like wanted to connect to the old world and was going to leave it untreated. He said, this is the way I'm going to go. I'm going to die from syphilis. I'm going to let it make me go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, Jim, you really got to go get this treat. Fuck no. This is how I'm going to die. I like this. I like that. I want people to know I died of syphilis.
Mm.
And then like 4 days into it, he's like, fuck it. I got to go to the doctor because his dick was burning every time he pissed.
Yeah.
He's like, he was okay with dying, but he was not okay with his fucking dick burning when he's pissing.
I had a hemorrhoid the other day, and that fucking thing was burning like hell. And I said, "Shit, man." When you get to my age, you start to contemplate. I don't want to fucking die in pain. I want to die in my sleep. But to die in pain where I'm fucking crying for help and stuff, that I don't want to do that, man. I want to die with.
You don't want to die like Dwayne Haskins either, though.
Oh my God! What are the details? He was on the highway.
He got hit by a truck,
but he was walking on the highway. Do we know why he was walking in this highway?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just saw that he got hit by a fucking truck, and that was that.
A dump truck too.
Yeah, like if they were Mortal Kombat, it would say fatality.
Yeah.
It's over. Just terrible way to go.
Yeah.
Just horrible, man.
Yeah.
Hey, as I go now, not to poor segue, but I've got to go to work.
Sure.
And like I would ask you this later when I'm at 911. I would text you and be like, "So what'd you think? Like, really, what'd you think?" Because I don't know. Like I feel like it didn't go as well as I had hoped when me personally, as I leave. I feel like the Eric Kramer one when I left, I was like, man, that was great. This one, I kind of feel like, man, I dropped the ball a little bit.
You did not at all drop the ball. Let me tell you what happened, because you can't see. You don't have access to video. It looked to me like Jim had just woken up because he was rubbing his eyes a lot and stuff. And so I think it took him a little while to get into the interview. I'm speculating here, but he was great. You were great. Lots of keep living, Aldo. Thank you, Nomad. Lots and lots of praise coming from the chat room. So trust me on this. You were great. Jim was great. It was a great interview. It was a lot of fun. And
We got the good Belichick story out of him.
Oh my gosh, that was I actually put a star on that. I'm going to see if I can make an ad out of that because that was a fucking great story, and I did not know that at all, Dan. So I'm glad you did, and we were able to get it out of him.
Yeah, I triggered him by saying Bill Belichick's a goddamn liar, right, or something. I knew that I'd heard him say Bill Belichick's a damn liar. I've heard him say that before somewhere. So.
Yeah, Cliff Victoria says Jim seemed to be okay with the interview. He has been much worse in some of the other interviews that he's seen. So there you go. And Jordan says, Dan, I'm dead serious. It was fantastic. Relax. It went well.
Thank you all. Thank everybody. I appreciate you all. As I go, because I got to go, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. I could talk another 3 hours. Another name we could potentially get because he's been with Mike North is Tom Zach.
Oh, Mike T. That's right. I forgot we had him on. That's right.
Yeah, that was a great interview with Tom Zach.
Yeah. All right. Well,
and he's on Twitter.
And he's on Twitter too. Oh my gosh.
So is Harbaugh, but I don't think he's going to talk to us.
Yeah. You know, I shouldn't get into it because you got to leave. But drive safely, get over to your job, and go save some lives, brother.
All right, man. Be well. Thank you.
All right, man. Stick around here. I'm going to talk a little bit about other stuff that's going on in the bar room. Let's see. Tomorrow is Wednesday. We got Bar Down Hockey Talk. You guys, I know a lot of you guys don't listen to hockey, but stop by and take a listen to a little bit of that show, especially when the show starts at 2 p.m. Central. The guys are so funny and they talk off the wall stuff. And then, you know, the show Bar Down Hockey Talk is divided into 3 periods. So the third period is usually when they start talking pop culture or about other sports like NFL and stuff. So if you tune in, take a listen to it. Cliff Victoria is reminding me that Science Fiction is on our Barroom Network, and indeed it is. It's Thursdays at 9 p.m. Central. So if you're a Marvel fan, a DC fan, or just science fiction films in general, you should check out the show. Salim Sudorala and Carl Ames, they are aficionados of especially the Marvel universe, and so they're always reviewing what's going on. They'll take a trailer of what's coming up next in the Marvel universe, and they'll dissect it. They'll freeze frames and look for clues as to what might be on it. It's really, really interesting. That's Thursday at 9 p.m. Tomorrow we're announcing officially that John Buffone is back on the Barroom Network, and he's going to do his Buffone 55 show and his post-game show. And the show that he introduced last year, he developed called The Bear Debate. We're going to make some changes to that show. So we'll announce what that show is going to be about, but it's basically a debate show with people discussing various topics about that. So be on the lookout for that when it starts in late August. Back to our schedule tomorrow, Draft on Tap Thursday. We've got 2 fantastic guests. Eric Edholm is he covers the draft for Yahoo Sports, and Mike Schofield. You probably have seen Mark Schofield. He writes for Touchdown Wire. This guy's a former lawyer who said, "Fuck this! I don't like this lawyering shit," and he quit his job so that he could write about pro football. And he played in college football. He was a quarterback, so he knows the game inside and out. Has been writing now about football for I think over 10 years, and so it's going to be a joy to have him back here at the Barroom Network talking about the upcoming draft. Thursday night at Wednesday night, I should say, Science Fiction. I think I got that wrong. And Thursday night is Draft on Tap with the guys and their guests. So we've got that going on. Nomad says, got to get on daily, Aldo. It's worth it for you. Trust me. Yeah, you know what, Nomad? I've been thinking about that. Actually, was talking to Retro, and Retro had that idea of maybe doing something, a daily show that's Bears focused. And it's something that I've wanted to do, frankly, for a long time. It's just very time consuming, but Retro's idea is even if it's like a 10 or 15 minute report every day on what's going on with Bears news. And if there's nothing specific going on, there's always a topic about the Bears that you can entertain. So I'm thinking of doing that. So, more on that later as that as that materializes. Stephen Me says, I'm just here for Dan's sex stories. Yeah, so am I. So am I. He's got a special friend in his life right now, so I'm not sure we're going to get the graphic details on some of the stuff, but we'll see. Cliff Victoria says, still love you, Dan, even though you're a Democrat. I love it. So anyway, that's a little bit about what we're working on. This upcoming Bear season, I promise you, it's going to be our best here at the Bar Room. We are really got some great ideas and some great plans. And a lot of you folks are providing these ideas, so please keep them coming. I think it's called crowdsourcing when you get ideas from people outside the organization. And so you guys have been presenting a lot of great thoughts. Hit me up on Twitter, DM me at my own personal account, which is Aldo Barkeeper, or the Barroom Network account, and I will get back to you. I've been talking to people like Jordan and some others. Yeah, there's Jordan right there. Always a joy, Aldo. Lots of fun and great content as always. Thank you. And so, we want to make this as fun for you as possible. And so a lot of what we are planning to do is molded by you. So please keep the ideas coming. It would be very, very helpful. Jim McMahon, thank you very much wherever you are. Dan Aguirre, I hope you get to 911 safely and you don't have to call 911. Wouldn't that be weird if Dan got into an accident, he's going to call 911? Hey, I work there and I need help. That would be weird and sad. I should not have brought that up. Nonetheless, that's our show for tonight. We will be back here live tomorrow at 2 p.m. Oh, Greg Gabriel and I think, are going to cover defensive tackles, that 3-tech. You know how important that is to this defense. So he's been looking at day 2, but mostly day 3 defensive linemen that could come in and maybe earn their way a spot on the roster as a 3-tech. It's a very, very important position in this Eberflus defense. So look for that early next week. And I think that's it. Oh, wait a minute. Cliff Victoria says, seriously, Aldo, this was one of the best McMahon interviews I've ever seen. Nice job to you guys. Thank you, Cliff. Really appreciate that. Nomad says, you're on a blank canvas, man. Absolutely. That's a great way to look at it. We've got a blank canvas here. But one of the things, if I'll just stick around here and talk a little bit more, as long as you guys are providing me some material in the chat. One of the things that I'm most interested in is molding this stuff with you guys, because I think that's an important part of how you find success with something. And I'm not so interested in this podcast being a worldwide phenomenon or anything like that, but I am proud of the work that we put into it. And it's just about presenting things in a way that makes them palatable to you guys and makes it engaging for you guys. There are tons and tons of podcasts. I'm actually working on an idea right now, and I wanted to see how many podcasts out there about the Chicago Bears are there. There's like over 40 podcasts, easily 40 podcasts about the Chicago Bears. So you guys have a lot of choices from podcasts that are well established with Olin Kreutz and Adam Johns and reputable reporters. Hub Arkish has been around a while, and so I don't look at it as we're competing with them. I'm looking at it as we're trying to deliver diverse programming for you, so that you can say, hey, this is cool. I like this show. I don't like this one. I'm going to make sure I watch this one. This one I don't care for. And I think that's a good way for us to maintain a relationship with you guys. And there's one of the things I've looked at for a couple of years is an inexpensive phone system to get you guys to call in, and we can do it like a traditional radio show. Those things are pretty expensive, and it's very, very hard when I'm hosting a show also to work the controls of the mixer and now a phone system and stuff. But I'm looking at other ways of doing that. Like maybe you guys can send me a video with questions, or maybe I can just send you a StreamYard allows us to have 8 or 9 people up on our video screen at the same time. So could be the opportunity of having you guys pop in, ask your questions, interact with us for a few minutes and stuff, and then on to the next so-called caller. So that's something that I would really like to entertain. I always get a little nervous with the technical stuff. You know, I'm more of a producer, writer by trade, and director for decades of being in this business. And so when I started the podcast business, I've had to teach myself all this technical stuff, and it's a pain in the ass. Hey, there's Retro. We're just talking about you. It's almost more about the content provider versus the actual content. Yeah, I think you're right there, Retro. There's a lot to say about that. You know, when I started working in broadcast TV was around the time that the Oprah phenomenon happened in Chicago. She had a local TV show, and then it went national, and she became a multi-billionaire. And why was that? It was because of Oprah. You know, she was, that almost didn't matter what the topic was that she was talking about. It was her delivery and how she interacted with her audience that made her so rich and famous. So I agree with your take there. Stephen Me says, just send nudes. Yeah, send me nudes of your wife. No, just kidding. Mo Bierman says, Bears talk with Worldwide Aldo. That would be cool. I know Chris Watts is a big fan of that, and we're going to have him on this show soon so that he can share his thoughts on the Bears on this particular show. He's also been making a lot of appearances on the Barfly Tailgate Show, which is a show that I'm really proud of. The guys continue to put the content out there, not every Sunday during the off season, but lots of it. And Aaron Current has taken a lead role now that Bobby Bombs has been busy with some stuff, and Ryan Badgley has retired from the bar room. So kudos to Aaron and to RKB, who are holding the fort on that, along with Chris Watts being an occasional guest. So I really love that stuff. Let's see what else we got here. Nomad says, Bears fans are ravenous. We never get enough, Aldo. Just know that from the gate. Yeah, you know, it's funny that you say that, because I was thinking the same thing. You know, as I was thinking about, you know, what's our niche, where do we fall in, and so forth. And you're right. I mean, Bears fans are ravenous. It's like there is no off season. I do believe that I can come up here and I can talk about Bear stuff, and it doesn't have to be about the present Bears. So if it's a slow news day for Bear stuff, you know, we can open up a topic. Who were your 5 favorite Bears from the this decade, you know, or the last decade? We could talk about, you know, what's your what particular game do you recall the most that made you fall in love with the Chicago Bears? Not what season, not what year, not what player, but a particular game that you saw that really made you fall in love. Like for me, you know, when I started following the Bears, they fucking didn't televise the home games. But I started watching these highlights on the 10 o'clock news of Gale Sayers running in the mud and running for 6 touchdowns and stuff. And I was like, holy shit, man. That's phenomenal. I gotta get into the sport. Stephen Me says, Oprah gave away a lot of free shit prizes, although he's a fan of prizes. Yeah, you know, and I was thinking about that too. A lot of people in the barroom say, well, why don't we give away free this and free that and free that? And I'm like, well, really, do we have to give away free stuff in order to get people to listen or watch our shows? I don't know. So maybe I'm not a big fan of giving away stuff. I guess maybe I should rethink that, because it does seem like a lot of people are kind of feel that way. Cliff Victoria says, don't say F you on air to chat members like TTL. Oh, I know those guys. They did that to you when we had a disagreement on Deshaun Watson. I lost respect to them. Yeah, those guys, I used to work with them, and they sometimes can get a little, what's the word? I don't know what the word is. You know, they can come out strongly. I've had a lot of people come to me and say that, but they're great content creators. They do good work over there, but sometimes they do get a little overboard with their people who disagree with them. Let's put it that way. Stephen Me says, get out of here, Stephen. Nomad says it's easy for us just talking about the possibilities with the current Bears. I have details. Yeah, you're right. The idea that we can hope about a championship team is important. I'm a big fan of the movie Shawshank Redemption, and that whole conversation that Morgan Freeman has with Tim Robbins, and Morgan Freeman says, hope is not a good thing. It can get you in trouble. It can really fuck with you. And Tim Robbins disagrees. He says hope is a good thing. And that's the way I prefer to think about it. Every season for me starts with the opportunity of winning 17 games. I know it's not going to happen, but why not? Why not just go out and win the first game? And then after you win the first game, win the second game. Every game is a Super Bowl game. So I have hope that this thing is going to get turned around and that we are going to bask in Super Bowl glory sooner rather than later. Mark Lamont says, Gale Sayers was the best. I still remember the Kermit Alexander hit on him that wrecked his knee. Mark, that was a game that was not telecast in Chicago. And so when I saw the news that night and I saw the replay of it, it was film, the Channel 2 sent out the film crew and stuff, and they showed that hit of Kermit Alexander hitting him. I think it was like right below the knee. And back then, even young fans like me knew that if you had suffered a knee injury, it was highly unlikely. It was highly likely that it was going to ruin your football career, and it didn't ruin it completely because Gale Sayers came back and ran for over 1,000 yards in one season, but it certainly did impact his style of play and shortened his career. Nomad says, put me on audio and I'll show you. Nomad, send me some audio. Send me some audio, man. Jordan Silveria, we need our Andy Dufresne. That's right. You got it, man. That's my boy, Andy Dufresne. What was Morgan Freeman's character's name? Red, right? Red. I read the book too. That was part of Stephen King had a book called Different Seasons, 4 short stories. I think all 4 short stories have been made into movies. And the short story that was the basis of Shawshank Redemption was called something about Rita Hayworth, about the poster. In any case, good stuff. Mo Bierman says, blackout rules, Aldo. Yeah, it was back then. The NFL would not telecast a home game unless the home game was sold out 72 hours before the game. And the Bears were so bad then, they were having trouble selling out. And in some cases, I remember if they were like, they needed to sell 200 or 300 seats, there's some car company or some dealership or something would buy the tickets so that we could see the game on TV. I mean, that's how screwed up back then. And by the way, this was back in the days when the NBA finals wasn't even telecast in prime time. They would do a tape delay. Magic Johnson's first championship with the Lakers as a rookie against the Philadelphia 76ers. That was on tape delay at 10:30 at night after the local news. Unbelievable how they ran stuff back then. We complain about today's stuff, but back then was even worse. Stephen Mee says, wasn't Red supposed to be Irish, but they cast Morgan Freeman, but kept the name? You are absolutely right, Stephen. That is exactly how it was written in the Stephen King novella. He was an Irish guy with red hair. And of course, when Morgan Freeman shows interest in being in your movie, you rewrite it real quick and fit it into him. Leo Factor says, a lot of egotistical type people like to go on camera to talk. They feel like that what they have to say is important. The Factor, you're absolutely right about that too. There are so many podcasts out there, and I've listened to some, and it does sound to me like these people don't really have anything interesting to say. There's a lot of really good podcasts. I listened to a few today for a project that I'm researching. And, but yeah, there's a lot of people who do podcasting. It just doesn't have to be with sports. It could be about anything. And they just go on because they want to hear themselves talk. We're at an age now where we've got easy ability to broadcast our thoughts through social media, through podcasting, what have you. And a lot of people do that, but they don't really pay that much mind into what they're going to say. And that's one of the things we take a lot of pride here at the Barroom Network is, everyone that does the show prepares. Like I can tell you right now, it is 11 p.m. On Tuesday. Tomorrow, Bar Down Hockey, I will bet you $100 that Vinny Parisi right now is working on what the content is for his show tomorrow. And that's one of the reasons I love that guy and I love that show, because they prepare. They do a really good job. Cliff Victoria says, network TV always seems to be out of touch. You're right, man. It's network television is trying to appeal to a broad branch of people. And so that's why a lot of the stuff is watered down. They have got to rethink, CBS, NBC, Fox, who am I missing? CBS, NBC, ABC, and Fox. They have to start rethinking about how they are going to go about the business. The business now really is about streaming. It's about streaming. And so people have to start to think about that and making shows palatable for on demand so that we can watch them at our convenience. Like I'm going to go upstairs now and wind down, and I'm probably going to watch something that I've recorded over the last few weeks and stuff. That's the business. The only thing that network TV has an advantage of is live sports. A lot of people don't want to go back and watch a sports game that's been played, earlier that day or a day ago and so forth. You want to watch it with all of America or all of the world. If it's a big game, you want to watch it all. And network TV usually has the rights to that stuff, although that is changing this season. For instance, Amazon is going to be doing the Thursday night games. So I wonder how you guys feel about that. You've got to have an Amazon subscription in order to watch the Thursday night's game. Now, if the Bears are on Thursday night, some local television station will probably pick that up if they follow the rules that they have in the past. But yeah, the broadcasting and media delivery landscape is changing dramatically. And so we're trying to stay on top of that to make it easy for people to enjoy what we do. Cliff Victoria says, info is king. Filler shows get turned off. Yeah. I hope I'm not doing filler right now. No, Matt, because of the way you think is why I find chemistry here. Aldo, thanks. That's a very, very nice compliment. I appreciate that, and I got to tell you, one of the things I strive to do is not to be on too much, because I don't want this to be the Aldo Barroom Network. I want to have diverse voices. I want to have people that are, like Mike North, for instance. Mike and I are almost as different as we could possibly be. Mike is a conservative. I lean more to the left and so forth. He has a totally different style, but I enjoy him. One of the things about my approach towards things is to try to listen to as many points of view as possible. And even the ones that I disagree with, I want to have the courtesy of listening to that. And then that way, maybe I can learn something. And if I disagree with that, I can file it on, all right, I disagree with that. And so that's what I want the Barroom Network to be. A lot of diverse voices. And then you're not forced to watch everything that we put on here, but hopefully you will watch. We will have something that will intrigue you. Let's see. Cliff says there seems to be aiming at a specific segment of society. Network TV, I don't know if that's the case, Cliff. I think that they're trying to aim at everybody. PJ says network television is too liberal. In some cases they are, in some cases they're not. I mean, we would have to get into specifics there, but Nomad adds network TV is pretty good. You got to keep something away from the kids. That's a very, very good point. I just read the other day that Dancing with the Stars was canceled. ABC is not picking it up, and I rarely watch that show. The only time I watched it was when the girls were watching it. I'd sit down and watch it with them, and they would say, "Oh, you got to watch this dancer." Last year, I forgot the basketball player's name that won, and they were telling me how awful he was at the beginning and how week after week after week he got better, and they loved that show, and they were bummed that was being canceled. So you're right. There is a place for mass television, for the broadcast of shows that could possibly appeal to people from the left, the right, the top, the bottom, whatever. Mark says, it pisses me off that DirecTV has a lock on NFL games. Mark, I think that is changing with the new TV deal that's coming out for 2023. So I don't know much about it. And one of the things I want to do for this show is bring on Ken Fang, who is a writer for Awful Announcing. They cover sports on television and streaming and so forth. He knows a lot about that. And Dan, it's a favorite topic of Dan. So I would love to have Ken Fang on maybe right after the draft, and we can talk about what's on the horizon with broadcast TV and what's going on with sports television. Cliff, about the only network TV I watch is when I'm walking past the Queen's chair where my wife has it on. I hear you, man. Let me tell you something, Cliff. My wife is a huge Dateline fan. I mean, that is what she loves to see. So anytime I'm walking by, it's somebody being murdered. And I make the joke about this. If she ever wanted to knock me off, she probably will know how to get away with it, because she's watched so many of those shows. Mo Bierman, the Amazon experiment ought to be interesting. When they did that Saturday game a year or two ago, it was choppy. Yeah, you're right. They didn't have the bandwidth. I don't think they anticipated the millions of people that were going to watch that. So I'm sure they've got that cleaned up, but yeah, it's still iffy. I'm going to hate seeing network television lose broadcast rights to all football games, but hey, it's a new world. Can't cry over that. As long as I can watch my Bears every Sunday, I'll be okay. Jordan, and that you do, although I enjoy that. Each show has its own vibe. Bare Their Souls is a shoot your shit type of show. Draft on Tap is film-centric with a good guide, me. Thank you. And Greg Gabriel is a treasure. How about it, man? I am so fortunate to have Greg on this network. His insight into stuff is just fascinating. I mean, you can agree or disagree on his evaluation of players, but you can't disagree that this guy has lived it. He has been in draft rooms. He has interacted with the greatest of coaches, Bill Belichick, and the greatest of organizations, the Giants and the Bears. He's worked in the XFL. He's got all of this knowledge that he shares on that show. And he and I have now done it for a little over a year, and we've keep growing our rapport. I know what to do. I ask him a question and I just get out of the way, man, and let him talk. It's a great experience for me personally. I'm glad you enjoy it, Jordan. I know a lot of other people do. PJ, you should really have a show where you have people from the chat on live, especially your regulars. I totally agree with you, PJ. I mentioned that a little while ago, is that StreamYard will allow about 8 or 9 people. So I've been thinking about doing that. It is tricky though, that, I'll have to make sure that everybody, first of all, has a good connection, that everyone has good audio, because the worst thing that can happen is we get 8 or 9 people on, and I'll go to you, PJ. Hey, PJ, what do you think about blah, blah, blah? And all of a sudden your connection is breaking and so forth, or your audio is bad or whatever. And then I'll say, hey, PJ, we'll try to work on your connection. Let's go over to Greg Tierney. And then his connection is bad. So those are the things I kind of worry about. I want the shows to be as technically flawless as possible. So perhaps one thing to do is just do a test with everybody. All right. PJ, Jordan, Greg, and so forth. Let's do a test 15, 20 minutes before showtime. If everything sounds and looks good, then you guys are in for tonight. So maybe that's the way of going about it. I'm definitely going to work on that, because I would love to interact with you guys in a much more intimate way than reading your chats and so forth. I'd love to hear your voice. I'd love to look you in the eyes, so to speak, in the video and just have some fun. Greg says network TV is terrible. You know what? The only thing I watch now on network TV other than sports is Law and Order. I'm sort of addicted to Law and Order because it's such an easy thing to follow. You know, somebody is killed at the top of the show, or somebody's sexually molested at the top of the show. And for the first half hour, the cops try to figure it out. In the last half hour, it's the court case and so forth. It's just, you know, while I'm working on my graphics and stuff, it's just on but outside of that, I can't think of, you know, I've been watching a new David Kaplan show on NBC Sports Chicago and a couple of other things like that. But yeah, for the most part, I'm not going to give network TV high marks. Let's say Mo Bierman says, you and Mike North are funny together. Thank you, Mo. You know, Mike has decided to scale down the amount of shows he's going to do this year. He's going to be on after big news. Like, for instance, when Mitchell Trubisky was signed by the Steelers, he called me right up and says, hey, can we do a show tomorrow? So, and whenever he calls me, I'm going to accommodate him because he's one of the greats, and he's done so much to help this network grow, just with what he does on social media for the Barroom Network. And I know Mike is the kind of guy that there's a lot of people who dislike him. But you know, again, if you're tolerant of other people's points of view and stuff, you know, Mike is more than palatable. Mike is a tremendous entertainer, and with his experience in covering Chicago sports and his life story is just so fascinating. I hope that people who haven't given Mike a chance will the next time he's on. Let's see. Tell me 2 network shows that are conservative. Well, I don't know. Well, I would say I can't speak for any shows that are conservative now in terms of entertainment because I haven't been watching that much TV. But I remember the show 24, which I loved a lot, with Kiefer Sutherland. That was, to me, a conservative show. I mean, when you are basically interrogating a witness or a suspect, and you shoot the person in the leg, that's not something that liberals do. That's something that hardcore conservatives do. I mean, that's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, I don't know. We all know that Hollywood leans left, in some cases very left. So perhaps you're right. So PJ, let me ask you, it sounds to me like you prefer more conservative type entertainment. Where do you go for that? Is there a place for you to go to that? Jordan says that DirecTV has one more year. Yeah, that is the case. The current TV contract is up after 2022. Let's see. Mo Bierman. Come on, Aldo. You were afraid of drooling over one of the female dancers in Dancing with the Stars. Trust me, man. My wife, I'm used to my wife scolding me for doing that stuff. Let's see. What else we got here? I think we've probably killed enough time. Although, PJ, do you have an answer for me on that conservative stuff? I'd love to know. You know, I know conservatives complain a lot about television nowadays. Is there a place where you go for some of your programming? BJ says YouTube. I watch YouTube 8 hours a day on a variety of topics, however. So PJ, do you see? I got to get you on. We'll have this conversation better face to face. And so right after the draft, I'll work on the plan to have you guys on the show. And we'll make that happen. It'll be a fun time for us. I don't want to turn it into a party line kind of thing. You know, I want there to be a semblance of professionalism to it. And so, but we'll work it out. I'm really looking forward to talking to you guys face to face, so to speak. Stephen Me says the A-team was very conservative. They shot automatic machine guns and never hit anyone, Stephen. You're funny. All right, everybody. It is time at 11:15 here in Chicago. Just almost 11:15. I am going to go unwind to watch a little liberal television and prepare for tomorrow's programming. 2 p.m. It is Bar Down Hockey Talk, and then at night it's a science fiction. So hopefully you'll join us for our broadcast day here at the Barroom Network. And don't forget, we've got baseball talk at 2 p.m. on Thursday and Draft on Tap with Eric Edholm and Mark Schofield to be Danny and Neil's guests. Talk to you all soon. Really appreciate you hanging out with me. Bye-bye.